Yeah, let's go live. And yeah.
It should. I've put my computer on silent, so it should come up as silent, because I don't want it double clicking.
We're here now. Okay, cool. Well, this turned out to be much harder than it all should have been. But yeah, we're here. This is it's of course me, Nick from the Shogunate, and Antony Cummins, of course, and we're here to have a good chat with you all today.
I'm just pulling it up now, guys. Like, I'm just checking it. I'm on dual computers. So, right. I just want to do something first. Can we do a testing, and somebody write 1, 2, 3, testing. And let's see what the delay is. So that was 2 minutes past 6. Let's see how long it's set before someone says 1, 2, 3.
Also, can you guys all hear us all good? That's always a top issue, it seems like, if you guys can hear me, Antony.
So yeah, while we're waiting for that, there we go, we're in. So we're about a minute and a half delay, guys. There we go. Okay, so we know, right?
Yeah. Anyways,
it was them
over there. So we're doing this kind of through Discord. This is my first time doing kind of a dual stream thing. So it's kind of a little bit haphazard here, but hopefully it all is working out, and there's no problems throughout the stream here. But with that said, welcome. I'm really glad to have Antony here. This is, of course, the first big step with bringing people on and doing, more kind of, I don't know if interview is the word, but just have people on and doing live streams like this, where we can bring cool people on and talk some samurai history, or really anything. It doesn't have to just always be history with us, even though our history channels are what we do.
So somebody asked me, they said, which is my favourite samurai for Sengoku period? And I'm actually going to say Musashi, to be honest. Because, as much as I think he's cliche, if you actually strip back all the fame over the Edo period, he's generally a cool guy. If you take away the invincible warriorness of him, he's still, when you read his writing, I think he's just solid. Yeah. And I quite like the way he's very direct, like, no, that don't work, this works, let's get on with this. And I think it's quite good.
I know there's a lot of course, hype and stuff surrounding Musashi and kind of romanticism and things that get piled in with him and his story and whatnot. Do you buy into much of that, or do you subscribe to it, or what is your opinions regarding kind of all the extra Musashi romanticism?
That is one of the big problems. So I don't know who did the book on Musashi. Was it William Scott Wilson?
I'm not entirely sure.
I think he did it, but what happened, I got an email today from my publisher, and Thomas Cleary has died. So Thomas Cleary writes most of the books, and I'm not sure if Thomas Cleary has done a book on Musashi, but I know William Scott Wilson has, I think. And between him and Alexander Bennett, there's so much misunderstanding about Musashi that I actually find it's mainly like theatre, films. And I remember somebody saying once, like, I was in a dojo somewhere, and they were like, Musashi wouldn't do this, Musashi. And I'm like, everything he said pretty much came from a film, or from theatre or something. So all we've really got is his documents. And I know some people on the fringe are like, did he really write Gorin no Sho? But let's all imagine he did. And I just think that is an amazing window. We all think of it as an Edo period text, but actually he's like 16, 15 at Sekigahara time. So, and that doesn't include the Osaka, where apparently Musashi fell off his horse in Osaka. He was hit by a stone. Yeah. So he's like, gets walloped by a stone, falls to the ground, and he's like, perfect warrior and all that, So, but basically, I just think he is that link to the old way before the Edo period changes.
Mm-hmm. I think, I've heard, kind of talk about, like, what battles was he actually in, and, like, where was he really in regards to, all the different people say, oh, I mean, maybe he was at Sekigahara, maybe he was on campaign in the West during the Sekigahara, war and whatnot, and of course then everyone goes, oh, he was at Shimabara and all that stuff, and it's like people, I see so many arguments regarding, oh, that's fiction. He was just in the area at the time. He wasn't actually there or whatnot. So I kind of myself get lost in, well, whatever. Like, he was around there. What have you? The thing that I have, the problem regarding him as a battlefield warrior, and this gets into my video I did where I talked about like the top 10 greatest samurai warriors, and I didn't use Musashi in that list. And the reason for that was because we don't really have too much, information on him regarding him as a frontline combatant. So that's why I didn't include him there, because we don't really know. He could have been fighting here or there, but really it's hard to say how well he would have done in like those big masses of soldiers and whatnot.
And he's young. He's really young. You're talking about a 15-year-old lad at that. Like the horse thing. I can't remember if it's Shimabara or Osaka or something. It might be Shimabara, but I'm not sure. But basically, you're right. You're like, is he here? Is he there? Somebody's saying this. He's off his horse. But all of it is like, you'd have to start from scratch, I think, and go through everything and check where he was. So, yeah, and he wouldn't be that impressive. He'd be quite low level.
Yeah.
But then again, he's meant to have been riding a horse at some point, but I'm not quite sure what year that is, which makes him, this idea that he doesn't wash or he has a vagabond, except he owns a horse and armour, and, and it's just, there's all sorts of rubbish that goes on.
Yeah.
Okay, hold on. Musashi was hit by... So that's it, Shimabara. There we go. So,
Scott knows.
Scott, by the way,
when in doubt, Scott knows.
When in doubt, Scott knows.
Sengoku Studies there, which all of you should go subscribe to as well. Go check out Sengoku Studies. Scott is we call it a sensei on my Discord server. He's one of the most knowledgeable people I know in terms of samurai history and Sengoku history. So he's very, very well read. Yeah. So if Musashi is your favorite samurai, what's your favorite clan?
Takeda.
Takeda. Yeah?
Yeah.
Why's that?
Only through Hattori, so it's made me think about it. And I know a lot of people say if Takeda was sort of, did he continue, would it have taken over and all this like that. Mm-hmm. But you just get the impression that he was pretty good.
Yeah. Yeah, I feel like that's one of the ones people always like to point to, especially there's all that love and whatever for Shingen as well. So it's and of course there's all those festivals that are still honoring Takeda and Shingen, and I feel like an extension of that, the Sanada too, sort of get lumped in there because they for so long served the Takeda.
Hold on a second, Scott's just saying. So I think Japan at War is here, guys. Yeah. So Japan at War is around somewhere.
I think I saw Japan War pop in here. Yeah, well, yeah. Go ahead.
So one of the things, so obviously I have to follow up on the Hattori family, and the Hattori family we know from the I'm going to stop reading the questions for a minute, guys. So Hattori family were following Takeda Shingen's army, yeah? And I've had to follow that through, and instead of like overall, I've literally had to focus on one family, and we found a document of signatures with thumbprints, if you like, they're signed from when the Takeda forces fell. I think it was 1581. Scott sort that out. Just check, 1581, I think.
I think it was 82, just a year later.
Is it 82? Right. And then basically, we get this list, and we had to go through it because it says in the documents, in the Kishu official documents, that the Hattori family, then, with the rest of the Takeda, actually had to sign over and go with Tokugawa. And we went and found those lists, and we actually found the Hattori members who'd signed, because they were going to execute them all, I think, or just get rid of them all. So Tokugawa says, I'll take them. And actually, they went and then formed a temple in Wakayama, where Hattori's thinking now. And we've had to follow all that paperwork trail all the way through in Japan. And it was just cool to see this old document. However, it had to be retranslated because the original had fallen to pieces. So it was just awesome. It was really good to see actual graves of people who were there and families that had established themselves who are now still in Kishu. And obviously we met the Hattori family. They're still there, worshipping the Hattori graves, all the way from the people who signed over from Shingen to Tokugawa.
That's cool. That's really cool. I really love hearing those connections to the past that we still have. But yeah, regarding Japan at War too. If you go subscribe to him as well. Great channel there. Japan at War. Let me see if there's any. I'm gonna start picking through more of the questions here. I'm just gonna scroll up a little bit just to see. You probably see my mouse on the stream here. Sorry about that.
See, I fall short of this. I totally fall short of this type of history. Yeah. This clan's here, that clan's there. You guys way outdo me.
What do you guys think if the Takeda were able to take Nagashino? Would they be able to hold back the Oda Tokugawa forces? That's a good question. I like to, and this is, I know in my previous streams I've kind of, said, I'm not although I love doing these kind of what if scenarios, it's hard to sometimes answer the questions of, these what if scenarios. So, like, if the Takeda were to win that Nagashino, how would the Oda and Tokugawa have been able to, essentially hold them back? I still think they would have been, because at that time, I don't think Katsuyori wasn't as strategically gifted as Shingen, and on top of that, even then, Katsuyori's force at Nagashino was still significantly shorter or smaller than the Oda Tokugawa alliance at that time, which had a much larger force. So if they were to win at Nagashino, so what? Like, the whole reason why they were laying siege to Nagashino was largely because they couldn't take anything else, and they saw it as an easy target when everything else was so stacked against them. But what do you think, Anthony? Do you think the Takeda could have kept pushing if they won at Nagashino?
I don't know. I think not, probably, because I don't know. They weren't. I don't know loads about that. By the way, we cut off for a while. I don't know what happened there.
Yeah, just it blinked for a sec. Yeah, I saw that.
Yeah, I was like gone, but probably not. I don't think so. I don't know if he was that way inclined, to just push everything. Otherwise, he'd have done a lot more, I think.
Yeah. I definitely agree, and there's the interesting kind of super what if out there idea of like, oh, if the Takeda were to have pushed through, perhaps you could have had a Takeda Shogunate or something, because you could trace their lineage back to the Minamoto and whatnot, which would have been really crazy. Imagine like Shogun Shingen or something.
That's the other thing. So hold on, we got the other thing for me is you've got the Shogun, the Emperor, and then you get the Regent. I can't remember his name. Then you get people like Toyotomi Hideyoshi who are assistants to the Emperor. Mm-hmm. That what's the translation of his title? And you just actually, there's a lot of powerful people at play. Half the time the Shogun's in power, but he hasn't got it. The Emperor's not in power, but without power. So a lot of people only mention Emperor and Shogun, but we forget this like the Regent. I forget the Japanese name.
I know with Hideyoshi, he was the Kampaku for a while, and then when he retired, he was the Taiko. So I'm pretty sure the kind of the big head region would have been Kampaku. But once again, Scott, if you're in there, correct us.
Yeah, because I think that Kampaku it means like assistant to the Emperor, which allows him to be in command of the country, but actually is in command of the country anyway. But then there's a region, and I forget the name of the region. But it's, for example, I think Nobunaga was regent to the Shogun.
Yeah, there's another. I think I could be wrong, but I think there was another rank that Nobunaga was at that was different, if I'm not mistaken. That's something I didn't get into my series too much. It just, yeah. What's that?
So Japan at War. I'll try. Sorry, guys, if I'm missing. Basically, I don't get that many criticisms about ninjutsu anymore. Not at all. Everybody seems to be under the agreement that ninjutsu is ninjutsu, and everybody's happy with it. So it's actually, we're in a good period at the minute. I think this one's for you, Nick, the Ainu.
Which one?
Basically, the northern tribes, the northern barbarians.
What was going on with the North Star? I'm trying to scroll through here, is it one of the more recent ones down here?
Yeah.
Oh, the Ainu. Yeah, people asked about the Ainu last time. In my last stream, and I think the answer is still the same. What significant role did they take? They sort of sat out for a while. I know there was a significant Ainu uprising in the Edo period that was eventually kind of clamped down on. But all in all, they kind of were a bit insignificant up there, and it wasn't really anything too drastic because they got pushed up there. The originally was the Amishi during the wars in the late 700s and the early 800s, and they kind of got forced up into, well, they were already there, but they essentially, all of Honshu was under the rule of the Yamato kingdom at that point, and it was Japan as we know it, and the samurai rule. So or it would come into the samurai rule. But in terms of the Ainu actually doing anything really significant like that, like I said, there was a significant rebellion that happened during the Edo period, but that it didn't go so far as to really impact Japan, and then the samurai did actually put it down.
There's some interesting Jesuit accounts and accounts of the Ainu, and there's sort of a crossover. You get these blue tattooed mouths, big earrings, and they also have katana occasionally, but they also have poisoned arrows, and I think they drink a lot. They just get very drunk, and they sort of and they have a totally different culture, but you see them exchanging on the borders, and there's this sort of weird half samurai culture on the border, which I think is bizarre. And it's the same as last time when Nick had a live event, and I was chatting on it, and it's the idea that we don't really focus on these halfway points. For example, when we get Yoroi, big armor, and everybody's got big helmets, big armor, and then we move to modern, compact, smaller armor, at which point is the crossover? So have you seen the film Knight's Tale with Heath Ledger?
Yeah.
Yeah, amazing film, brilliant film. They laugh at him for wearing his grandfather's armor. And you're like, is it that fast a change? 2 generations? What? That's something I haven't got the answer for.
Mm-hmm. That's a good question. And I on top of that, I do wonder with the trade going on, because I think there obviously was some kind of interaction between the Ainu and the Japanese, because the Japanese did have some territory in southern Hokkaido there. I do wonder if there was really any exchange of arms and armor kind of stuff. It probably wasn't a lot, but I wonder how much it could have maybe influenced the Ainu to maybe create some sort of variance that was similar to something they could have saw the Japanese using, potentially even vice versa up in the north there. But whatever it would have been, it probably would have been very minimal. I saw a question for you, Antony, up here. What do you say about the genesis and lore behind, is it tabi boots? Or Hollywood myths or functional footwear?
Okay, hold on. Right. So first of all, Sanada, my favourite book that I've ever created is my Art of War, the Ultimate Guide to Art of War. I absolutely love the Art of War. Everybody loves samurai. It should be all over the Art of War. And the reason I made it was because loads of people have read it, myself included. I read it multiple times. I couldn't tell you what was in it. I couldn't tell you. So I broke it down. So without doubt, that one. Right. Hold on. Where's the tabi boots?
Let's make unicorn burgers is the person who asked it.
Right. Right.
It's actually a little bit further up now because the comments keep coming in. Sorry, guys. We're trying to come back and try to find some of these things.
Tabi boots. So tabi really do go back quite a long way. They definitely go back to 1500s, if not before. They are made of, the Italians quote on them, and they call them glove leather. They say they have a split toe with glove-like leather. But when I did this idea of these in martial arts, these white cotton ones, I think are more for Zen monks and tea ceremony. So you get this idea of, everybody in the martial arts walking around with these white tabi boots. You should probably be having leather ones. But we do know in the Heika Jodan manual, it says that the backs of tabi should be split open so that all the stones fall out of them. And also, what a lot of people don't realise is there's etiquette to footwear. So everybody knows that you take your shoes off going into a house, but actually, in the olden days, you used to take your shoes off outside as well. So I've told Nick this before, but when one of the Jesuits came across Oda Nobunaga on a bridge, he takes his feet out, and Oda Nobunaga calls across and says, no, don't bother, just put your shoes on, it's all right. So we've got to imagine all these samurai taking their bloody feet out of their shoes, but it's these half sandals. But you can't wear certain shoes in front of royal people, so you have to wear bare fur socks. So there's a big protocol on shoes in Japan, and I've not quite got my head around all of it yet. Yeah,
it's something I know nothing about.
That's the difference. That is the difference, I think, between like what me and Nick do. In fairness, is Nick is like this clan there, that clan. And it just puzzles me. I'm like, if I've got a question, I'd say, Nick, what clan was here at this point? I've no idea. But what interests me is because I did archaeology, exactly that. What boots are they wearing? How did a samurai do this? Did they have shoelaces? How did they tie it? What tabi are they wearing? I love those types of questions.
Let me scroll up here. I'm sorry if I missed some questions here. I'm trying to keep up with the flow of them. Just ask it again as it comes through, and we'll try to get through it. But I got a question here asking if I could do a video on Musashi or Tomoe Gozen. Yeah, I could maybe someday. There are two figures that I feel, once again, Musashi I've addressed before with making a video on. I haven't really been too interested on it, and if I do get around to doing it, I imagine it'll be heavily linked to, if at all, I'll do it with a video on the Book of Five Rings, because I know that's one people are asking for too after I did my Hagakure one. So that's probably gonna be your Musashi video that I end up doing. And about Tomoe Gozen, I don't know enough about her, and I know a lot about her is heavily kind of, people are very suspicious if she even existed at all, so that would be a harder one to do.
There was a Channel 4 documentary about female warriors in Japan, and it was really misleading because it had skeletal remains of girls who had been, they had like battle wounds on, but it was so skewed. Because actually, do you want to? Somebody's just giving money out.
Jim Ross, thank you so much, man. Yeah. Let me just finish what Anthony's saying first, and then I'll get to what you said, Jim. Just one sec.
So basically, it turns out in this house, somebody had gone in, broke in, and killed everyone in the house. So obviously, a shinobi-like sort of infiltration, if you like, or just a thieves. And the women had defended themselves as well. They had like cuts on the hands and cuts on the face. So you do get women fighting, but we know through like most of it, they don't like women going to war because it changes the yin-yang energy. The samurai want yang energy, not yin energy. So, which is quite a thing. Right.
But yeah, Jim, thank you so much. That means a lot. Your question, Nick and Anthony, what is your opinion on contemporary documents from before the mid-Edo period that seem to contradict each other? Many seem to almost impressionistic rather than linear history. Much seems to be lost or non-existent, which surprises me. It surprises me too. I feel like, and that's something that, as we get in, I know it's something that I think really it kind of started clicking for me working with Antony and his stuff regarding ninjutsu, and getting into what is like an Edo period, kind of myth, what was written during the Edo period, or something that is questionable if this really happened prior to that. And that's something that we see with a lot of the stories from the Sengoku Jidai, is that a lot of these popular stories sort of come out of the Edo period, and it makes us wonder, is this a story in the Edo period, or is this a story that has truth from the Sengoku period? And I know one of the big ones that I talk about so often, that outside of the ninjutsu stuff with Antony, but is the one regarding say Mitsuhide's mother, and that is a whole story that often gets thrown in with was that true? Did his mother really get killed thanks to Nobunaga? And people say, that's an Edo period myth, but it's like, okay, but if it was, and it was, if they're actually carrying on a story, and this is just the first time you're actually finding writings of it that weren't destroyed or something, that makes it really interesting and fascinating. So I always give benefit of the doubt, but there is a lot of stuff you would kind of squint at, and it's like, is that true? Was that just an Edo period romance or something?
The documents are massively difficult. So first of all, when you deal with history, you've got real problems. You've got who's writing it, why are they writing it, where are they writing it, and when are they writing it? Those four questions sort of come in. And then, of course, you have to then divide what are they writing about, in the sense of, if it's something that they directly have seen, then it's quite strong, or it's quite possible that it's right. But if they're talking about the past, their past, So if they're talking about ancient China or 500 years before, they're most likely wrong, compared to our research. But when we have people talking about what's literally around them, that's where we get the best. But then you get the problem of oral tradition. So oral tradition, like the Iliad, Homer, Beowulf, are all down to meter and rhyme, and they're really quite good. And you can pass them on for hundreds of years. But then you take the four Gospels of Christ, and they all contradict each other. Like, he's born here, he's not born there. It just doesn't make sense half the time. So it is a real problem to work out what's right and what's wrong. And you can build entire theories, and then one document comes up and smashes everything out of the way. It's really, that's why history has to keep repeating itself over and over again and keep rewriting, hopefully till we get to the best point.
I just want to give a thank you to Philip for donating. Thank you so much. And then Japan at War, who looks like he has to go. But thank you guys so much for donating. I'm not asking for money, but thank you so much for the donations. It really helps the channel and everything.
Yeah, Scott's talking about the documentary. It could have been the same one. I think that's the same documentary, Scott. I think it was made by Channel 4 UK, and then they've put it across the world, I think. But yeah, it was totally misleading. 30% of combatants were women. Absolutely not. But you would clearly see that in the literature. But because it's this house, this one place where somebody had broken and killed a load of women, the next thing is they were all wearing armor, and it's like that's not true.
Yeah, it's once again, I feel like Japan is one of the most over romanticized in terms of their history and stuff, and that is one of the big problems with trying to get what's really accurate across today. I know in my own videos I probably lean into that romanticism and stuff a lot, because with what I do in my series and things, which is why whenever I do get into something that really is more romanticized, I generally try to, at least in my more recent videos, I've been trying to catch myself, and I'll say something like, oh, it is said, or it is it is suggested that this may have happened or whatnot. I try to kind of at least put an air of, this is uncertain that this may have happened or something when I talk about certain things like that.
Right, I'm just going through some of these questions. Right, hold on, I think I'm getting up. Right, basically, what's the most influential battle of the shinobi? We don't know, to be honest, guys. The word shinobi, the problem is it actually doesn't appear except for in the Taiheki. So the problem we've got is shinobi as a noun, that means it's a thing, or shinobi as a verb, meaning he's doing something. If it's a verb, guys, we are going a shinobi-ing, we are infiltrating. It's not, it could be anybody. It could be like, Nick is infiltrating my house, but they use the word shinobi. So what we need is the word shinobi as a noun, which we do find in the Taiheki. Then it disappears, just disappears. So this is a mystery of the shinobi research, and it resurfaces again about 1560 to 1600, and then it just kicks off again. So the only real way we can thingy this is it's probably because Kusunoki becomes popular. The Taiheki is a Kusunoki-based document, and therefore the Taiheki is going nuts. Everybody's talking about it, and the word shinobi pops up in there, and therefore you start seeing shinobi again. That's one theory of why shinobi disappears and reappears. But what the problem is, you probably got a load of other words that actually mean the same thing. So something in the north of Japan is a different word to the south of Japan. So we're actually not looking for the word shinobi, but it means you got to go through all the battle records. And to be honest, the Taiheki is one of the oldest ones, and the Heikei Monogatari, but what battle records do we have from the 14, 15, 1600s? I'm not sure. Would they need to be checked, searched, got into English? So it's very difficult. Yeah. But sorry, Nick, we have loads of
keep coming in.
I know we have loads of commentary about the ninja after the battles, but how much is correct? Because they're talking about the past. Right, that's shinobi battles done. I've got one. Right, go Nick. I'll keep going down.
There's one for you here about the Makabishi and shinobi caltrops, and are they historical? And then there's one below that I want to answer, but I'll let you get to that one first because it's before it.
Right, caltrops, absolutely. Yes, they're historical. They are historical all over the world, pretty much. Europe has them, everyone has them, but then they're not shinobi. They're literally the Japanese had them. And what used to happen is people would put them behind their garden fences, and if anybody jumped over their fence, you'd jump on them. They used to put boards with nails on them. Imagine Viet Cong, Vietnam type traps. They're all there. Loads of that sort of stuff. Whip bamboo traps. And the shinobi would have bamboo or metal or like stripped wood. And they would even use broken blades. So any broken blades that they found on a battlefield, they'd put them outside sieges. So anybody rushing forward in the siege would just put their foot on the front of a sword blade.
Yike. I want to get to this one right here, asking a very, very interesting question that I myself wonder about. He was wondering, why did Hideyoshi not get rid of Konishi Yukinaga? Being that Yukinaga was, of course, Christian, but then there's the story of him, of course, mucking around with the peace negotiations in the middle of the Imjin War. So yeah, I myself wonder that. Why didn't Hideyoshi get rid of Yukinaga? And I feel, besides the Christianity part, because I know there were a couple of daimyo who maintained their Christianity despite Hideyoshi forbidding it. His whole thing with being against Christianity ended up being, in terms of his own daimyo, more of a slap on the wrist. He was against it, but when it came to actually being a disciplinarian with those who were loyal to him, he was more lenient. So that's why you see, Konishi remain as Christian, and you see the Otomo remain kind of Christian. So regarding that, that's why he didn't get rid of them for that. But I do wonder, and there's arguments whether this story is true or not, but the whole thing with Konishi Yukinaga being sort of instrumental in kind of meddling with the peace negotiations in the middle of the Imjin War. And that is something that, apparently Hideyoshi, after he found out that Yukinaga had been sort of lying to both sides in the negotiation, and lying to Hideyoshi, apparently Hideyoshi did want to order Yukinaga to kill himself, but he was persuaded to not to by other retainers. So you can definitely tell there was some anger there from Hideyoshi, but it's really interesting just how far Hideyoshi let Yukinaga go, and I wonder what other factors were there between their relationship that would have maybe kept him in good graces with Hideyoshi, regardless, even after all these things that would have, anyone else would have been really mad about, disobeying orders, lying to your face. Was he that loyal of a supporter and that instrumental that Hideyoshi really felt that he needed to keep Yukinaga around? It's questionable.
The other thing from Christianity as well is the fact of the trade power. The amount of trade. Don't forget, guns are coming from at some point guns come in and you've got money coming in. I think there's tons of trade going on. We all get this idea of Jesuits, but actually there's this. So somebody's just mentioned pirates. You've got, at this time, you've got the pirates going between Korea, China. You've got people going over to Macau. You've got all the Jesuits in Macau coming over, the trade ships. It's like this massive trade network. And it's only after all this that Japan shuts it off. So it's a case of how much power did these Jesuits have in trade? Because remember, let's be honest, the Catholic Church is quite a rich, powerful entity. And if it wants converts somewhere, it's probably streaming money. And so somebody would have to go through and have a look about the cash influx from, the east, the west. But yeah, the pirates are massively out. So that answers that question.
Yeah.
So I've got a few here, Nick. So
sure.
Basically, I can't listen to Nick and read the questions at the same time, so it's struggling. Let me answer the obvious ones first. Is the Antony Cummins is a fraud type ones. Let's do these. So how much Japanese do I speak? Almost nothing. I'll be honest with you guys, I can struggle along. I've got about 200 kanji. I probably have a vocab of about 200 words, maybe 300 words, but not, they're outdated words. I have to ask help in Japan all the time. But that's the reason why I put a team together. Remember, guys, I started by going, I don't know anything about this ninjutsu. That's historical. I only know the fake stuff. So let me go ask people. And that's why I put a team together. So I've watched people in Japan spend 20, 30 years study Japanese, and they actually can't read the Shinobi Scrolls. So one of the main things that I was like learning all my Japanese, and basically I used to give my homework out. I used to give Ninja Scrolls out as homework to my English class, and nearly all the native speakers who were well educated could not read it and did not understand it, or it was too complex. So you need to find specialists, and that's why I went and found specialists.
Yeah, I didn't even see questions like that come in here. I was looking.
Oh, yeah, I've got a couple here, Nick. But I was expecting, and all right, they've been polite. So, first of all, I just want to say George is here as well, and he's talking about being adjective and everything. The word shinobi inside of grammar is one of the most problematic things. I have sent a million pieces of like screenshots to my translators going, is that ninja? And even though it says shinobi, like, no, that's not, that's this, that's the verb, that's this. And, it's like they have to look at each one and say, maybe not. So, yes, George is brilliant. He follows me all the time. He's been really good. And about the criticisms about ninjutsu, you have to remember, guys, all of the criticisms I get are from organizations that are damaged by my work. Most people who I don't damage by my work tend to not criticize. So, but actually it's getting much less. Everybody's having a nice time now. We're having a much better community.
Let's go through here.
So I can keep going if you need me to. There's quite a few.
Let's jump around here. I don't want to necessarily stick too much on that if we don't have to.
No.
Yeah.
So, for example, Jiu-Jitsu and Iaido, how much do we actually find? Now, I actually think Jiu-Jitsu is not that important in samurai. It seems to be important in the late Edo period. Everybody's having, these wrestling competitions, inter-combat competitions. Now, I don't know much about Edo period history, to be honest, but it seems that there was at some point restriction on who you could compete with. And then their restriction was lifted, which means you get a lot of inter-clan, inter-house, sort of who's the best. And they can't knife each other to death. So there's a big focus on jiu-jitsu, and you don't find that much.
There's a quick question here. Are there any good books about Oda Nobunaga? Specifically about Oda Nobunaga, I know one of the most famous ones is called the Chronicles of Lord Nobunaga. I don't remember who it's written by, but it's I believe it's all through primary sources. Unfortunately, it is a very expensive book to buy. I think it's goes around $200 US. It is, I don't know why it's so expensive. I don't know if it's out of print or whatnot, but there are versions you can find, online, if you want to really hunt it down. But the Chronicles of Lord Nobunaga is one of the ones that I often hear people say is one of the best Nobunaga books, because it's all through primary sources, I believe. Let me go down a little bit here. What do you guys think of Tadakatsu Honda? As from what I've heard, others, he was another of Japan's greatest warriors, and what happened to him afterwards. Okay, so Honda Tadakatsu is one of my favorite, one of my favorite samurai warriors. Particularly going back to, of course, the Samurai Warriors video games. But Honda Tadakatsu is so fascinating in not only the way he looks and the stories about him, in his bravery in battle, but the whole idea that I think gets often forgotten, his origins and how he came to sort of serve Ieyasu. And this is what, and once again, I've only seen this written down in a couple places, because most sources regarding Honda Tadakatsu try to say, oh, he was, throughout all of Ieyasu's life, he was a loyal servant of Ieyasu. And there's been places where I've seen it. Actually, in Mikawa, the Honda family and Tadakatsu were actually pretty stern followers of the sort of the Jodo Shinshu, kind of the Iko-Iki faith, and they were part of the local Iki there, and there was disagreements once Ieyasu came back to Mikawa regarding should they follow this guy who's supposed to be their lord, because remember, Ieyasu had prior to that been a vassal of the Imagawa, and the whole idea was, is this guy really going to be trying to take over the province and assume what his birthright is? And there's this whole kind of series of things. I mean, I forget the name of the battle, but there's a battle finally that Ieyasu fights against the Iko-Iki, and Tadakatsu flipped sides, and he saw the kind of valor and everything that Ieyasu displayed, and his merit and whatnot, and that convinced Tadakatsu to join, sort of leave behind, I guess, the faith. I don't know if he actually stopped following it, but he sort of left the sort of the group, I guess, and went and sided with who would be his, natural lord in Mikawa, Ieyasu. And I think that gets forgotten a lot, that this guy was a member of sort of the local Ikawiki. And then, there's the rest of his life story of being the warrior who surpassed death, fighting in all he fought in so many major battles alongside the Tokugawa, and he, of course, never really suffered an injury at all, and fighting in all these battles. And there's accounts, I think the battle the day before the Battle of Sekigahara, even, when he's older, he's literally leading a charge behind enemy lines to help free some friendly soldiers. So he's doing frontline combat all throughout his life. And of course, after Sekigahara, where he lead troops at, he dies a peaceful death in I think, could be wrong, I think it's 1609 or around there somewhere. He dies just peacefully. So this whole story of this guy who fought in all these battles, served Ieyasu his entire life, never got a scratch on him, and it's just he definitely is someone who is a very heroic figure, not only for his life story, but personally the way his armor looks and everything too, and weapons he had, the Tombogiri. I think he had a Masamune sword. But yeah, this legendary warrior, truly one of the greatest samurai warriors of all time, in my opinion.
Are we okay, Nick? I've got a few to go through here. Is that all right?
I just want to say thanks to Albert there for the 120 yen. Thank you so much. Albert,
right, sea warfare. A lot of people are talking about sea warfare, and the Japanese. I've just translated with Yoshie. Obviously, they translate it, and I interpret to try and get it into readable English. But we've done a scroll on aquatic warfare, naval. Oh my god, it's complicated. Samurai ships are complicated. So, for example, you don't ring a bell at sea. You don't ring any metal at sea because it's an element of yin, and yin is an element of water. So you put yin and yin together, it's too much negativity. Hence why you don't have females in battle and things like that. So we talk about the 5 cycles, the 5 Chinese cycles of in destruction. There's curtains. There's the build of Japanese ships is ridiculously complex, and warfare is excellent. It's like X formations, circle formations, in the bay formation. There's tons and tons of even shinobi ships, shinobi infiltrator scouts. Nobody touches it. Nobody ever talked about it. There's an entire samurai area of sea warfare that hardly anybody goes on about. So yes, it's totally needed, guys. And Book of Samurai, maybe 4 will have it, but we're years away from it.
There's I think one of the big battles that I think often gets forgotten is the Battle of Kizugawa-guchi. Actually, there are 2 battles of Kizugawa-guchi. Those naval battles outside of Osaka there, when they're blockading Ishiyama Honganji. And they're often overlooked, and these are some major sea battles during the Sengoku period, and I think they need to be more recognized.
There was a good Stephen Nojiri, if you know, guys, he's one of the researchers. He loves this episode. I think it is Heike, or it's about the 2 courts one, and they're having a battle at sea, and this samurai in full armor just grips 2 of his enemies and just launches himself into the sea in full armor and kills himself and 2 lads, and he's like, if I'm going, you're going, boys. And he just lobs them in, and I think somebody throws the emperor in at one point and kills an emperor child. They're like, right, we've defeated, so they throw a child to drown who's the emperor, and I think somebody pulls him out, or pulls the handmaiden out by a hair.
Are you talking about Danoura?
Oh, I can't remember. It's one of the emperors who just gets launched.
There's the battle of Danoura, where the child emperor Antoku was there with the Taira, and at the end, all the Taira samurai, realizing their defeat, all hopped in the water and drowned themselves, and the young emperor and his grandmother hopped in the water. I think that it's.
I love the way you put it, Nick. They hopped in the water
just to...
very, very calmly. I think he was lobbed in, like, get in, you're drowning. His grandmother's throwing him in, like.
Well, I could be more gritty here, and they hopped into they leaped to their death in the blood, soaked, sea below, drowned.
You just imagine this picture of this old grandmother going, "Come up and go to the shops. Off we go,"
Yeah.
Then we've got so yes, guys, naval battles are ridiculous. Did people use ropes in sleeves? Absolutely. They use konawa, which are small ropes. Now, in rope combat or hand-to-hand combat with rope, you need a thin, small string with a massive fishing hook, but you need a larger rope to bind them. So at first, you go into the mouth, go into the ear, go in anywhere like that, rip them down, tie them up, and then you put the big rope on them. So yes, absolutely, rope in sleeves. Is there a...
Go ahead.
Is there a connection between the ninja and karate? No, please stop saying that, everyone. There's zero bloody connection. Ninjas are like from 1500 and karate comes from China about 1800 and doesn't even come to Japan till 1922.
I thought karate was Okinawan.
Basically, it's Chinese Tei. Goes to Okinawa is a port that's got a lot of trade. Tei comes to Okinawa. We start to see it in the late 1800s with the white crane sort of karate guys. And then it's not until 1922 that it actually properly comes to Japan. Like 400 years apart. Totally 400 years apart. Kuji. So Kuji has been around since ancient China. My mate John Hayter has found this in a 2,000-year-old Chinese manual. Kuji is literally Rin Pyo Tosha Kaijin Retsuzai Zen Aun, or you do it Rin and go through it. I don't know the mantras, it's too complicated. And the earliest one I found is to go up a mountain. An old Chinese mystic will put mirrors on his back to get rid of demons. He'll put Taoist talismans on him, and he will do this protection grid, because the actual translation of the Kuji means like warrior ancestors or something like that, come and face off with me and protect me. So Kuji has been around in Asia for a long time. It's nothing to do with the ninja, but of course, the same as chopsticks, they used it. It was there.
There's a quick question I want to answer here, asking if I could make a dedicated video on Sohei, Yamabushi, and other weapons and armor. In regards to warrior monks in feudal Japan, yeah, absolutely. The problem, and I want to address this because it's something that actually recently was kind of told to me and with evidence and stuff regarding it. The word sohei. It's a word that I didn't actually start seeing used that much until I started the channel here, and I started seeing people use it more. But the word itself, of course, sohei meaning like warrior monks, or Japanese warrior monk. The word sohei apparently, and this is from what I've seen written up, some people saying, and I don't know, maybe here and there it is, but it's not actually mentioned really at all. There's no written evidence of the word sohei. So warrior monks as it is, yes. Sohei, the word, the concept, maybe not. Now Yamabushi, I think, did more evidence for those monks, but in regards to warrior monks in general, take for example, the Ikoiki and other sects and whatnot. That is something they could definitely talk about. Of course, the interesting thing is regarding that is that every temple was different, every monastery was different. They all had their own beliefs, their own system, their own, how they saw, how they were going to, combat and whatnot. It's like the monks of Mount Hiei were different than the Ikoiki. So if I do a video like that, it would be interesting because you have to recognize that not all of them were the same and they were all different. They all had generally similar ideas of what they wanted, but they were also very, very different.
I did not know that Sohei was not. That was not found.
That is something recently. One of the senseis on my Discord wrote a big article about it and was bringing up these things about. It's the word itself has not been found, at least through what he's seen. It has not been found. I don't know, Scott, if you want to chime in regarding Sohei and your opinions of it there, please do, because I would like to hear what you have to think about that. Once again, Philippe, thank you again for another donation there. I just want to set the record straight in the comments for you under the Ninja Shogunate video. It was clear from your response that you did not find a... Oh, yeah. Okay, for anyone wondering, no, I do not I do not consider Antony a fraud. For anyone questioning that, if I brought him on here, obviously I don't consider him be fraudulent. I think the argument that he is fraudulent is really dumb. Yeah. Let's see here. I'm just looking through the comments here.
Right, I've got a few here, Nick, if you don't mind.
Go ahead, yeah.
So basically, while you go through, basically Yamabushi and Ninja, if you look at it we look at historical documentation, the only connection between Ninja and Yamabushi is the fact that the Ninja say use Yamabushi as a disguise, or actually use real Yamabushi and train them to be ninja. But what were they? No. This idea of them being connected, I don't know where it comes from. There, at the moment, no historical connection between them at all. Turnbull's books, we discussed this last time. Nick, we chatted about this, is Turnbull's books, it's like anything. It's good until it's updated. And if it's been updated and you found something better, then yeah, but beyond that, he's got like 50 or... No, Turnbull's got 100 books out, I think, now. He's... or 75 or something like that. So he's obviously going to have some mistakes.
Mm-hmm. Quickly asking about a video on the Date clan. So all my clan videos are, as I've said before, chosen by my Patreon supporters. I do polls where people can recommend decisions to me, and then I put them in a poll on Patreon. It's just something I do. So for everybody recommending clans or asking if I'll do a certain clan, yeah, at some point, sure, but it has to be decided by my Patreon subscribers.
Board games in old Japan, yes, you've got to imagine the Japanese samurai are playing board games, and they're also hawking with and they're hunting boars, and I think they're importing tiger skins from wherever the nearest tigers are. So you always see tiger skins in Japanese, but there's no tigers in Japan as far as I'm aware. So where do these tiger skins come from? Must be imported, unless they're bringing tigers in. I'm not sure.
Quickly on once again, I think this is a good ninja question for you. This is from Triple Z Hacker, one of my good friends here, who you should all go support. Triple Z Hacker. He's asking, and I think because this is something to do with also their portrayal in the game Shogun 2, Total War. But he's asking, were there connections between geisha and ninja?
There's the famous lady who's meant to have like been putting around sort of, what's the word? She puts all her spies out, shrine maidens and everything, and female attendants and all that. But at the moment, I have found no connection. You got to remember, first of all, geisha used to be men, didn't they? In the era of the Sengoku period, I think geisha are men.
I know. Oh, I'm thinking of something else. My bad. I know Shogo did a really good video on geisha. If you haven't checked out, let's ask Shogo. He did a great video talking about geisha, going through their rules and stuff, and kind of discussing the kind of hot topic of were they prostitutes or not, and kind of diving in what the different classifications of geisha and everything. So if you want to learn more about specifically geisha, go check out Let's Ask Shogo's video. But and I think this is something I mentioned in my first ninja video I did with Anthony, where assassination is a political move. A shinobi could assassinate someone, but anyone could assassinate someone. A geisha could assassinate someone, sure. Assassination was a political move, and anyone could do it. So to say that only ninja or geisha and kind of lump them together into assassins doesn't make
the first time you see assassin and ninja used together is about 1650, 1670, and especially with Fujibashi, he says you can, if you need to, kill a general. Then you get, like, by 1690, you get Chikamatsu Shigenori, who starts saying there are ways to kill. So, for example, in the Iga and Koku scrolls, it says, once you've got close to the enemy general and you're trusting enough, you're not allowed a sword on you, your wakazashi's been taken off, but the general still has a wakazashi. You dive for it, grip it, and knife him. And then you die. It's a one-way ticket. So there is cases of it, but they're not like these trained assassins who sit in mountains and, that doesn't... It's like the smallest... And as Nick says, anyone can be an assassin. There's a big difference between somebody going to kill someone and somebody being trained all their life for one mission.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Totally different. For sure. Ninja museums, though, guys. I got the question about ninja museums. If there's a museum in Japan and if it's got ninjas in it, don't go near it. Do not go near it. They are not... So that was... Are they trustworthy? The answer is no. In fact, there should be a court-martial for people using the word museum in Japan.
You also need to be careful with samurai museums in Japan as well. There was one I almost walked into that was in Kyoto, where it was... they advertised it at this big samurai museum thing. And it turned out to be this big tourist trap. It was, all this, you could dress up in samurai armor, get your picture taken and stuff, and it's all just, modern productions of things. And it wasn't really anything historical in there. So you got to be careful when you're going to that stuff. I found personally that the best museums in Japan were ones that were inside old historical buildings and castles and things, because those were the ones that actually house historical, artifacts and stuff. You've got to be careful with museums in general, because they with Japan being so over-romanticized and their history being so over-romanticized, they definitely know how to capitalize on their kind of stereotypical things that they know tourists want to see.
Yep, and some of them are not. Some of them are governed, like, for example, the National Archive, National Museum of Japan. Perfect, excellent. If not, it's a little bit on the conservative side, and we don't agree with it. So, But then at the other end, you've got one museum claims it's got the armor from nearly every Sengoku daimyo, and I've been there. And they've got a ninja collection. This is at the beginning of my research. Where I'm like, is it real? Is it not? And Yoshi is like, I don't think this is right. They've got everything ever. And you're like, they just make it up. Even going back to the old reports of Westerners going in the Sengoku period, the Japanese were ripping off tourists. So they were ripping them off then, and they're ripping you off now. Do you know what I mean? As much as Japan's amazing, just be careful. There's one here, Nick, maybe I've wrote down for you, which...
Go ahead.
Basically, was Nobunaga as violent as they say he was? And I know you like this one.
I wouldn't say he was any more or less violent than anyone else at the time. I think the worst kind of offense Nobunaga did was, of course, his massacre at Mount Hiei, which, of course, by today's standards, we look back at it as appalling. He butchered, all sorts of innocent people, and then burned down the historic temple at Mount Hiei. But at the time, it's hard to say was that anything that could be judged as that awful, that cruel at that time. Because there's stories of riots and stuff where samurai would go out and just start taking out rioters, just cutting people down. There's the incredible brutality shown by samurai who were on during their campaigns, as of course Antony, I'm sure you're familiar with, the head taking, nose taking, all the mutilation going down. Samurai were big mutilators. They loved carving up bodies every which way. But in terms of Nobunaga specifically, I think by today's understanding, looking back at the three unifiers, Nobunaga was probably the most brutal, if you're gonna just try to lump in crimes to each one. Hideyoshi did his fair share of awful things, or allowed his fair share of awful things to happen, especially in the Imjin War. And then, of course, Ieyasu himself was not innocent. He did some pretty shitty things. He followed through with ordering his son to kill himself in order to appease Nobunaga. Yeah, it's hard to say who was really worse than the other. I think by today's standard, we love to say Nobunaga, but it's really a more complicated question than that.
I think Nobunaga is one of the samurais that actually follows the samurai way wholeheartedly. He doesn't seem to have been deceptive that much. He's literally like, I am going to take control of this and murder everyone. So what are you going to do about it? Mm-hmm. By like 200 years after the Kamakura, what is he, about 200-300 years after the Kamakura Shogunate established, they're not even pretending the emperor's in charge. You know what I mean? It's like, this is the military rule. And it's like, but I think if anything, Hideyoshi was more crazed, and Hideyoshi by far kills the most people, I reckon, with his invasion of Korea. You and Scott discussed this. How many people die in Korea? Now, there's a massive difference on it, but it's a ridiculous amount.
Yeah, totally. And I completely lost my train of thought. Yeah, but can
you imagine Sean Connery singing "The Locomotion" by Kylie Minogue? This whole train of thought. Come on, baby, do the locomotion with me. Chaga chaga now, Bond. Just for train of thought. There you go, Nick. God. Try and get you back on that one.
Now I'm just done. Okay, moving on. Next question. There's a number of questions by Hudson E here, asking just about ninja stuff that I think you can just kind of shoot through real quick. First one is the term kunoichi or female ninja real?
Kunoichi appears in the Bansen Shukai by Fujibayashi Yasutake in 1676. It means, so hold on just a second. Kunoichi. So there we go, guys. So can you see that? So kunoichi means, it basically, that means woman in Japanese. Yeah. So when you break it down into the 3 katakanas, it means the secret word for woman. That's it. And they weren't ninjas like, dressed up as ninjas going out. It says it's that bad that it's actually blocked out because he's like, they're stupid, they're bloody women, we don't like women, just send them in to have sex and open windows for men at night. Okay. And then you don't really hear about it again.
Then I'm going to skip over one of his questions here and go to, is the claim that ninjas were farmers true? Anthony, I'm going to let you just roll off with that one.
So, right, ninjas and farmers. The thing is this is a problem where people from Iga are ninja, and people from Iga become farmers, therefore ninja are farmers. That's just not true. Originally, everybody in Japan is based on agriculture. All the entire food comes from internal, national, agriculture. The same as Vikings, you needed it. And then what happens is you have samurai looking after farms in the hills. And from that, they take a percentage and they can afford arms and military service. Now, the people from Iga were actually just samurai doing military service. But what happens is Nobunaga destroys Iga, he takes over them, and basically they are displaced, the same as Anglo-Saxons are displaced when the Normans come in. And what happens is they have to turn to farming. And over about 4 generations, they can't afford to be warriors anymore. And they can't afford, so they all turn to farming and ninjutsu ends. And for that reason, they say ninjas are farmers. It's just not true. They are full-time spies. But by the Edo period, they need to farm because nobody's hiring. Imagine you're in a total period of peace and you've got a load of specialist SAS people, special ops people. What do you do with them? They just go back to normal civvy street jobs.
Mm. Yeah, that's one of the biggest things that I think was eye-opening for me is finding out, that they were mostly made up of people who were probably samurai.
Yeah, it's like, and that brings the other question though, Nick, is how much of an army is actually built of samurai? Most of them are not, are they? They're actually Garu.
I think the numbers I was seeing, because I made a video like what did a samurai battlefield look like? I think
I saw that.
The number was like the ratio was like 1-4, like essentially. I know you can divide it down, but the number I actually took, which is funny, as I think for every 4 samurai there were like, actually no, maybe it's 1-3. For every 4 samurai there were 12 Ashigaru essentially, so it's like 1-3.
What? Sorry, for every what? Sorry, say that again.
For every 4 samurai there were like 12 Ashigaru, I think is what the number I saw was.
Right.
We have another $5 donation here from Dill Pickles. In Bansen Shukai, Fujibayashi says that only mediocre ninjas have their names remembered. Was Hattori Hanzo a mediocre ninja? Thank you, Dill Pickles, for the question and the donation. Anthony, what do you think?
That is a bloody good question. I've done a video on this, which is the Hattori Hanzo paradox. And the idea is he's famous, so how can he be a ninja if he's that famous? But he's actually not famous for being a ninja. He's only famous for being a ninja after they found the document, Shinobi Hiden. Actually, he is famous for leading an attack. Scott, do you have info on this attack, if possible? He does this Shinobi-style captain of attack, get in there. And he's about the age 16, so we know he's definitely from Iga. He's not from Iga, his father is from Iga. And that he's going in, doing shinobi-like things. But actually, he's hired as a general. He wakes his way up, not as ninja. He's not hired as a ninja. And also, nobody knows, as Nick knows, because he's had a full bloody thing on this, haven't you? The video we did, Shinobi Hiden. We don't know actually if Hattori Hanzo wrote that one. So his fame is based off a manual that he may never have wrote. So the only connection to ninja is he stormed a castle at 16. The
battle you're thinking of where he stormed the castle, I don't remember the name of it either, so if someone can bring that up. But that is... that was really early on for Ieyasu, where he was trying to essentially get the Imagawa out of Mikawa after he had kind of came home and after Okehizama. And that was one of the big kind of final pushes to get the Imagawa out of Mikawa. There was a castle they had in the province, and he had presumably Hanzo and a bunch of other shinobi go in dressed as they snuck in dressed as Imagawa soldiers, and they got in from the inside, caused all sorts of havoc, and essentially the castle fell from the inside because of Hanzo and these his shadows.
The ninja, I think it's Fujibayashi, says that's actually called Bakemono Jutsu, which means the skill of the changeling, to change into the other person. And it all sounds very cool, doesn't it? Like, you know, it's almost demonic. You demonically change into another person. Actually, you just put somebody else's uniform on and go in, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
You know, they do like making up these good words. I've got one here. Does Nobunaga hate ninja? No, this is another one of those false things. Nobunaga is taking over all Japan, and that's, as far as I'm aware, yet Nobunaga's out for all Japan. He just wants to take over. Iga is literally in his way. Iga's got people who are specialised in ninja. It's not that Nobunaga. You see it in all the anime and everything. I hate ninja and I'm feared of ninja. No, he's like, let's just kill everyone in Iga. In fact, he sends his son to do it.
I know people really like to get on his invasion of Iga and say it was this, you know, big moment in the period. And there's just recently I've gotten some questions. Why didn't I really cover that in my Sengoku series? Why didn't I talk more about Nobunaga's invasion of Iga? And one of the reasons was because simply in the grand scheme of the period, Nobunaga's problems with Iga weren't really that big. They were. It was a struggle, but it wasn't anything that was gonna make or break his true aim, his goals or anything. Essentially, it was just kind of a little bit of a thing he was trying to deal with. And I know in Age of Samurai, he's throwing temper tantrums because of his invasion of Iga is going so poorly and whatnot. But yeah, I remember in the books I was reading at the time when I was doing my series, they mentioned the invasion of Iga was just essentially, at first he sent someone to clean it up, and I think eventually Shibata Katsuie was involved for a while. And Iga, which at the time, of course, was their different families there, they were heavily influenced because the southern Omi province there was under the rule of the what's the clan's name? The Urokaku. And the Urokaku, from what I read, they really influenced the families in Iga because they were the nearest, strongest power. And when the Urokaku were swept aside and later beaten, although they put up a fight in Iga, these families put up a fight in Iga, and that's where you get all the great stories of the ninja of Iga rebelling against Nobunaga. It really was just kind of a slog until Nobunaga finally just got that all under control.
So we got to be careful with ninja and all that. Somebody's asked me, firearms, it was back to the gun question. Are there many firearms scrolls? Yes, there are tons. Japan is, if you don't know, right, if you go to Japan, Japan is full of scrolls. I couldn't even tell you how many there are. There are, if you want a list of all the scrolls within Japanese educational places, there is a big, imagine like the Collins Dictionary or something. It's probably about 3 meters long on shelf space with tiny pages of lists of scrolls that exist in Japan. There's got to be millions of scrolls, but only about 300 or 400 ninja ones, but tons of firearms ones. I've got so many firearms scrolls, and that does not include the ones that are in private collections. There's just so many.
People need to remember that Japan considers, the firearms essentially its own martial art. And if you watch, Gun Samurai, Mado Kuhara, he talks about, the I forget what it is, the art of the gun. I forget what the actual jutsu is called. Ojutsu, yeah. There's the styles of gunnery. So you got to remember just how much emphasis they put on gunnery. Jim Ross, another donation. Thank you, man. You say the reason that Japanese history is so fascinating is that multiple streams that were influenced by local and terrain and one semi-isolation of certain clans. Nick has one of the best broadcast voices, which make anything he says sound so authoritative. Thank you, Jim. Thank you so much, man. That means the world. I'll message you later on Patreon to thank you again, probably.
Who is this? I don't know. Koxinga. Do we know who this is? This question's come up a couple of times. Coxing.
Where are you seeing that one? Who wrote it?
The bottom. Nobunaga Oda. Oh. But Koxing. I'm sorry, I don't know that.
A Chinese name.
Yeah, I don't know it. Sorry.
Let me look it up quick. Koxinga.
So one of the questions I got before was, are there any Ninja Scrolls available? I actually try to make Ninja Scrolls available, original ones, I mean like the original Japanese, after we've translated and published them. So yes, you can find them. They're on Amazon. Just look up Bansen Shukai original, Shinobi Hiden original, Shoninki original. They are there. I've put them up for people. It took me a lot of time to go get these things and pay for them, obviously, get sorted. So yes, they are available. Ninja Scrolls, did you see it, Nick?
Which one? Oh no, yeah. See, he's a military. Well, what Google says about him, he was a Chinese Ming loyalist who resisted the Qing conquest of China in the 17th century, fighting them on China's southeastern coast. It just seems like he was a
Yeah, I don't know anything about him. Sorry, mate.
I want to answer Alfonso here. Alfonso, the trader, another great YouTube channel there. He does a lot with miniatures. If you love painting miniatures, miniature wargaming and whatnot, he does a lot of samurai miniatures. Really cool stuff. Alfonso, the trader.
Well, can I just say, Alfonso, can you go and look at my miniature videos and tell me what you think? Because I've done about 3 of them and nobody cares. So I'm going to go subscribe to you because I love samurai miniatures. So yeah, come over.
He also has a really good, there's a Facebook group all around it too that I mentioned in one of my early videos. He asked, did samurai cavalry use firearms? Or for that matter, did feudal Japanese cavalry use firearms? So that is, I'm pretty sure they did not. There is, of course, a lot of in movies you see it, in games you see it. You kind of like almost like dragoons in a sense, but I just don't think it was something they realistically did, because even if it matchlocks to fire it on horseback and then reload it on horseback, even if they hopped off horseback and shot it, that's one thing. But I from what I've seen, I haven't really heard of any story of that being true or anything at all.
We'll have to get Matt to do a video probably.
Yeah, that'd be cool. We got to get Gun Samurai to talk about mounted.
I've seen images of it, but I've seen images of it, but I don't know how realistic it would be.
There's a couple. I'm pretty sure I've seen maybe 1 or 2 woodblock prints where there's someone depicted doing that, but just logistically, how would that have worked? Like that just seems like it'd be a really out there thing.
Well, it does actually, though, bring up something, Nick, which is what a lot of people don't clock is in the West as well. It's the same on your own. You've got a group of about 5 people. So one of the scrolls we translated actually shows you how to cross a river with your horse, and you have 5 men. 2 hold on to the side here, 2 hold on to the back, and 1 and you're riding it as you swim. They've even got flotation devices. And what we do know about sort of guns is that if you're in everybody shoots and loads their own gun, but if you're in a tight formation or a tight point, you get your gun passed to your shoot, and the next person passes it. And what you do is you get wakashi or something like that, side helpers who are actually loading guns and passing them forward, same as they're passing arrows forward. You're not taking it out of a quiver half the time. Somebody's giving you an arrow and you're shooting it.
I just want to also bring up Japan at War mentioned that
he's back.
Bazutsu are small type of carbine that was used on horseback. Yeah, I remember in some of Matt's videos he was showing off the shorter guns that the Japanese had, and from what he made it sound like is that those were more rare and that you wouldn't see them as much. So maybe 1 or 2 samurai could have had that on horseback and used them, but I don't know if a whole big group would have had them and all been using them at the same time. So it probably was something that was used. I don't know if it was used in mass.
Fuma Kotaro. I hate saying that word. There's too many vowels in it. Right. Basically, this guy seems to be like a Robin Hood sort of guy. We think he is real. But the legends around him are so big. He's 7 foot tall. He's got half demonic face, and he flies and everything. Yeah, he's all like burns the sky, But we do believe he originally was a guy, and that he's a thief, and that he was hired to act as shinobi. Or the shinobi consider him to be acting. Remember, we don't find the word shinobi that early on, in that area when he's there. So whether he was or wasn't, what we know is he was probably hired for his espionage, banditry skills. He's just robbing people. And one of the tactics we know comes from at least the Edo period, when they talk about the Sengoku period, is whenever you're going to go to war, you hire all the thieves in your own domain, because otherwise they'll rob your own houses. You give them a job to go and rob the enemy's houses or to act for you. So most likely he was one of those. Somebody said before, is ninjutsu good today to use? I think yes. I think yes, because obviously you wouldn't do it in real life because you would be arrested instantly. But actually, the mental side of everything is superb. Learning about deception, kyojutsu. What's the difference between irregular and regular warfare, which is asymmetrical, symmetrical warfare, and all that? Yes. How to deal with people who are trying to steal from you on the streets. It is well worth going into the mindset of it.
But Tosai is the greatest samurai to ever live. Is that a Rurouni Kenshin reference there? Am I seeing? I was thinking about making a Japanese history channel. Okay, I was thinking about making a Japanese history channel. Where should I start? Anywhere you want. If you got, if you want to make a history about Japanese history, do whatever you want to do. The important thing about YouTube is when you're starting a channel, make sure you're making content about something that you find fascinating that propels you to keep going, because nothing stops progress more than making videos about stuff that you don't want to make videos about. It slows you down, and it's kind of hard to continue on. So go wherever you want, do whatever you want. If you want to do Genpei War, if you want to do Sengoku Jidai, Bakumatsu, wherever you want to go, do it. I've said this before, anyone can cover the same content. Don't worry about covering something someone else has already covered, because there's always a new way you can talk about it and explain it and stuff, and you always put your own voice kind of behind it in a unique sense. So yeah, do whatever you want as long as you're interested by it. And additionally, I just got another thing here. 55 is SEK. Is that what currency is that? From Henrik Bjork. I wonder if that's Swedish. Correct me if I'm wrong. But Shuriken is not ninja. But what about Makibishi, Anthony?
Yeah, we did. This is the caltrops, isn't it? So, we're talking about, Makibishi. So basically, again, we're back to the caltrops, guys. We did this before, just in case you missed it, Hendrik. And yes, they absolutely are, but they're used all over the world. And one of the best things we find about ninja and caltrops is they tie them on strings. And the idea is that if somebody's chasing behind you, you just let it go, and then they will get wrapped up in it and stand on it, and that you can start throwing them out as you go, which is cool. The shuriken, I still have not found the origin of the shuriken. Some people in the Chinese martial arts say they've got evidence of them. I need to see that, in China. And we know. So the big thing about shuriken, guys, which really annoys me, is you go to any sword school and mention shuriken, Japanese kenjutsu, and they'll say, yes, shuriken, we have it in our school. You throw it and then you attack someone. But everyone outside that says it's a ninja weapon. How can it be that the swordsmen were walking around throwing shuriken and the ninja were both saying they're secret weapons? It doesn't make any sense.
Yeah. Thank you again, though, Henrik, for the donation. It means a lot.
Yeah, the Ninja Before Edo period. Basically, that's a new popular thing at the minute, started by Turnbull. It is scuppered by the simple fact that the word is used as a noun in the Taiheki. And there are multiple different versions of spying. So it depends what you mean by ninja. It's like, do we mean this one thing, or do we mean espionage in Japan? You couldn't say there's no espionage in Japan during the warring periods. That would be ridiculous. Whether it was called shinobi or not, we don't know. But we have this meddling little 200-year-old, quote that says it is, but then it disappears again. So, but there's definitely espionage in the Sengoku period without a doubt.
Why didn't is the question here? Why didn't the Japanese continue pushing into Hokkaido following the conquest of Tohoku region?
The same reason the Romans didn't go into Scotland. Who wants to go there?
I was wondering, do we want all that up
bloody
there?
cold.
There's probably a more legitimate reason than that, but I don't know. That's a good question.
It's about how much money do you get from a place versus how much money does it cost you to defend a place normally.
Yeah.
It's like what oil, what mines are there, what silver mines, what can we take, what revenue. And if it's sparsely populated, mountainous and difficult to police, they just retreat and go, what's the point?
There's a question here about logistics and how it applied in samurai warfare.
Right.
I don't know a ton, but you can kind of get into thinking about, I guess, how the road networks and terrain of Japan is. Of course, Japan is very mountainous, but it does have those flat areas in between the mountains. And obviously, you're going to have supply routes that are going to be important to have and maintain. Say if you're invading a province, you need those roads clear so you can move supplies, and that's why there's such a big importance behind big roads like the Tokaido and Nakasendo, and having these big routes available to use, almost these highways that lead kind of around the country. So those are key to maintain. In terms of the supplies themselves, keeping your troops fed and everything, that's a different question, I think, in terms of how that all went down. I know there was a lot of raiding, but at the same time, you're not going to essentially want to be raiding the territory you're trying to capture. So it's kind of it gets more into how would essentially you keep your army maintained. And I think Japan itself, in regards to bringing forth supplies, it definitely wouldn't have been too difficult to keep an army maintained in Japan if you keep your supply routes secure.
I've got some info on this, Nick, if you don't mind.
Yeah.
So basically, baggage trains are called Konida, and they're run by Konida Bugyo, which is the baggage train commanders. And apparently, it is one of the most important positions, and one of the best generals will be in charge of it. And what they do is they have a prearranged formation called the Centipede Formation, or the 1991 Formation, which means it's identical. Because samurai march in 12 layered formations, yeah? But when they come up for battle, in 7 or 8 layer formations. This is from Edo period, sort of documentation on it. So what happens is your army called Sangun. It's divided into 3 guns, 3 military forces. They broadly go off together. Each one has a baggage train. And then what happens is if they are attacked, that baggage train acts as a separate individual thing, because all the non-mounted samurai go around it and help along with the walking samurai. So they're carrying gold, rice, but they're also pillaging fields, all that sort of stuff. But they also buy from the locals as well. And different armies have different rules. Like you can be executed for raping someone, or you can be executed for taking when it isn't yours. And at other times they just pillaged and killed everything. So what you find is this, like behind you, slowing the entire army down, is this baggage train, and they're actually, all your kit is sealed with like clay seal tablets. And they say they just want to stop people from nicking it. So a lot of people never focus on the fact that there's this massive armoured baggage train behind a samurai army. And the samurai army is divided into 3 sections, and they always have to protect that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's good that you know that. I didn't know anything about that.
It's mental.
Yeah.
Samurai marching is well difficult.
Yeah.
Is that more cat? What is that? So archery, while Nick does that, the one about archery, ninjas and archery, yes, we know that they have bows, but it's not a case of you have a ninja bow. It's like anything, ninja chopsticks, ninja cups, ninja this, it's just a cup, it's just a sword. But one of the coolest things I've ever found is a stealth arrow, which is called a shinobi arrow, but it doesn't mean ninja. It's literally, you lacquer it all black, you cut the feathers really short, and if you've shot anything and you cut the feathers short on a bow, it goes fast, but it loses accuracy very quickly. and you go through the night. And one of the aquatic things we found is all your bow is waterproof, your arrows are waterproof, and your string is waterproof, and you'll come out of the water and just start pouncing people with these black arrows.
There's a question here about cursed ninja swords. I wonder if you want to answer that.
Yes! Get off computer games. Bloody well. So hold on, Nick. There must be a computer game with it one in.
Oh, it has to be some kind of thing somewhere, but the only...
I know where...
Go ahead.
I think this is from Ninja Domination 3, the film. There's a cursed ninja sword that the spirit goes into each person of a ninja. Is it from Ninja Domination 3 is my question.
The only cursed swords in real history that I know about, and they're probably more than this, but the famous ones that obviously get often thought about is the Muramasa swords, which is they weren't cursed. Don't think that. And the whole idea that they were cursed came much later. It was sort of more of a slanderous thing that eventually came out later about them. The Tokugawa didn't necessarily fear them. I know Ieyasu, I believe, actually owned Muramasa swords, so he definitely wasn't superstitious about them.
Is it his grandfather died? His grandfather got cut or something. Killed,
his grandfather, I think, he was killed by one. His son, during his son's
decapitated
suicide, one was used on him, and then Ieyasu himself, there's a spear wound he received from one. So there's a lot of things, but if Ieyasu still, owned his own Muramasa blade, I don't think he necessarily bought into that fear. I think it was something that came out later. I talked about that in a video I did with Linfamy. I think I explained it better there than I'm going to here, but check that out. I just want to give a quick thank you to Thoth's Corner, $10. 2 questions. One, do you have a bibliography? I have 3 of Antony's books and a few others, but finding material over 100 pages is tough. And second, I'd like to hear more about the betrayals and why. So in terms of bibliographies, I know with my videos, I tend to usually put all of my sources in the description. There are times I don't. Specifically, sometimes I've been getting help. Like the most video I did recently on the one with about William Adams, I did that with Thomas Lockley, and a lot of the information came from him and sources he provided to me. If they're online sources, sometimes I tend to not actually always enter them into the description, simply because I don't want people arguing with me a ton in the comments. But generally, I do hunt down what would be the most, if it is an online source, what would be a good one. And sometimes I do actually link them and be like, oh, here's a good online source to use that I found useful. And then I know I don't put like page numbers though either, which I'm sorry if I don't do that. It's just
it takes way too much time.
Yeah, I don't. It's like and even if it's like just a small line written somewhere, I don't want to put a page number just for if it's a YouTube video. So I don't necessarily want to go all out. I'll put where I got the information, but I'm not going to necessarily put all these little page numbers.
And about 2 people use it.
Yeah, exactly. I think it's good to put your sources. It's just how in depth you want to go is something I think person by person does their own thing. I know some YouTubers go all out on them, which is great. Some you don't do it at all, which is kind of shitty. But I understand why. But yeah, and second, you want to hear more about betrayals. Now, you may have to add another thing in here. Specifically, what betrayals are you trying to get into? Are you thinking more stuff about like Mitsuhide, at Honnoji? Are you thinking about Nobunaga, backstabbing the Toyotomi? What betrayals I guess you want to hear more about? Leave another comment because I'm not entirely sure what betrayals you want to know more about.
So I'm just writing down the questions here. Somebody said you couldn't marry a Japanese people till 50 years ago, but originally, there you go, Nick. Someone's just come in.
Oh yeah,
is that
Henrik again? Some more. Thank you, Henrik. So I have books by Roddy and Westbrook, Lewis, Ito, and Turnbull. I have not read any of them yet. Are these good sources? Really. They look good. I mean, I'm not sure about Roddy and Westbrook. I don't know, Anthony, if you've seen some of these. I know.
No, I've heard the name, but no.
Scott definitely in the comments will probably know all of these people. Turnbull, we talk about Turnbull a lot. Turnbull's probably one of the most famous you're gonna hear about. in terms of
Well,
Turnbull,
basically, Hendrik, what do you want? What are you interested in? Like, what's
yeah. You've heard our comments. I mean, I just want to finish my thing I was going to say about Turnbull. Turnbull's good. He does have stuff that over time has been kind of shown to be he's generalized and maybe kind of glossed over and didn't flesh out enough and maybe misled in terms of his own writing. But overall, he's a good source to use. You're trying to get a general idea of the period and things. And then Thoth's Corner, you got your. I was thinking on your Patreon page. So you want me to put bibliographies in my Patreon? Is that what you're asking? And yes to all. I find it interesting that loyalty infused in the samurai tradition that there seems to be a lot of betrayals. Yeah, that's the thing. I think it's something samurai. I know I talked about this with Antony before and many times that we so often get led to believe that loyalty was such a huge thing for the samurai, and that essentially they had this strict code of honor that they tried to follow throughout their lives that was ingrained into them. And then you have that, the idea of Bushido that arose in the Edo period and whatnot. And we were kind of led to believe growing up that, samurai were these honorable and stoic warriors akin to like chivalric knights or whatever. But in reality, samurai, in terms of gaining power and whatnot, tended to also be very cutthroat. Their whole idea of the Sengoku daimyo, someone seizing power from their lord and taking over, especially during the Sengoku Jidai, samurai, there's really no true sense of specific samurai loyalty that was supposed to be ingrained. You had tons of samurai who often, left service of somebody because they didn't agree with their views. Somebody who, take, for example, Sue Harukata from the Ochi clan, who betrayed Ochi Yoshitaka because Yoshitaka lost his taste for war after the siege of Gasantora. And that pissed off Harukata, so he betrayed his master and essentially puppeted the clan for himself. People during the Sengoku period, samurai during the Sengoku period, were all about ambition and power. Sure, you had those who were loyal; those samurai are great, but that wasn't always the case. And a lot of times, you had to also maintain the loyalty of those beneath you, and that is something that gets lost, I think, when thinking about the samurai in terms of specifically the Sengoku Jidai. Outside of the Sengoku Jidai, I think you can really kind of put that honorable, loyal role on samurai a bit more, but during the Sengoku period, betrayal happened everywhere all the time, and we shouldn't, think it didn't.
Yeah, the one thing that always solves it for me is if samurai were loyal, who are they fighting?
Yeah. Why were they fighting? Why
were they fighting?
Why, if they were supposed to, if they were given their land by or they were allowed to keep their land by the shogunate, why were they all of a sudden going out and trying to fight over regional dominance and trying to take lands that weren't given to them, that weren't awarded to them? Why were they doing that in the first place? Like,
and even the fact that the shogunate exists, over the emperor is like, So the emperor's meant to be in charge, but they create the shogunate. You're like, it's just, there's no loyalty there, is there?
Mm-hmm.
But there, we have spoken about this, me and Nick, is you've also got the untold number of people who are not recorded, who are genuinely loyal and following their lord around to each battle.
I mean,
we don't know their names or nothing.
Yeah, I mean, I think the majority would have been people who would have fallen in line, and we often get, the ones that stand out are the ones that didn't fall in line, the ones that, rose up and did their own thing. The ones that became Sengoku daimyo, the ones that betrayed their lords, the ones that assassinated their lords. And yeah, so it's I think specifically the Sengoku period is just one of the reasons why it's so famous is that sense of loyalty disappears because everyone's ambitious, everyone wants power.
On the Ninja Diet one, I've got a Ninja Diet thing come up. There is no special Ninja Diet, guys. It isn't there. But what you do find is these soldier pills, they're called. And basically, it's like carrying a Mars bar or a ration pack on the field. It's that simple. Everybody saw these magical things. Actually, it's just high protein, high calorie, little balls that you carry, and then you go. Most of the rations are actually kept. If you look at Ashigaru, pictures of Ashigaru, they have cloth bundled into, sort of like sections, and there your rice. Ninja would go out with rice in cloth, and you make a fire, you bury it beneath the fire, and you soak it first, and it cooks the rice. And if you absolutely can't have a fire because you're incognito, then you keep these little balls that, literally eat a bar of chocolate, or, a tracker bar or whatever they're called, just to keep you going over the few days. But after about 3 or 4 days of that, you need to get some food.
There's a question here. Have I ever seen Princess Mononoke? Yes, I love Princess Mononoke. I'm a big Studio Ghibli fan. Mononoke is up there. I love The Wind Rises is another one that I feel like doesn't get talked about enough. Grave of the Fireflies I enjoy, but I don't necessarily think it's as sad as everyone likes to say it is. It is sad. Don't get me wrong. It's terrible, but it's I remember I watched it with a friend, and we were both trying to wait for a moment where we were going to start crying. It never came. But then Spirited Away was the one that I think that I saw first for any other Ghibli film, and that one will always have a special place in my heart. But my favorite Ghibli film is Mononoke, Princess Mononoke.
I was into Monster City and Guyver, and do you remember them? Guyver, Monster City. This is like late 80s.
Is this? I mean, I haven't heard of that.
Yeah. These were all big in 1989, 99. I'm 42 now, guys, so I was looking in the 90s. So in the 90s, we were getting things like that 5 years old. You know what I mean? Ninja Scroll was out, number 5 of whatever the thing was. They were proper filthy. They were Akira, and they were just.
Oh yeah.
And then,
yeah.
Then the Princess Mononoke sort of came. I remember it coming in, and I didn't catch up with that.
Scott, you're absolutely right. And why did you remove? Scott took his comment out.
What did he say?
Scott is like the Studio Ghibli is the only anime I'll watch, and it's like I'm not, as I mentioned before, I'm not the biggest into anime. I'm not against anime. I'm just not really that into it. And I guess what he's saying, but that's the only anime I'll watch. That's sort of true. I will watch some stuff. I would have watched the new Yasuke series if I wasn't so rooted in fantasy and whatnot. I would have watched that anime, but there were just too many things that kept me away from it.
There's a few questions there I've got down. So basically, did ninjas use poison? Yes, we know they had some sort of poison, but it isn't a case of poison blades. A lot of the time, ninjas are just openly who they are. They're infiltrating places. So we know, in open disguise, so you can place poison in people's food, but also you can poison dogs. We know that you used to put iron filings in rice to stop dogs. It's like literally the dogs would sort of it'd lacerate all their stomachs and kill the dogs so that they could go in. Another one was strip the dog fur off them and put it from the windward side, so the dogs would go mad over there and you could creep in on this side. There was lots of that sort of stuff. But then we get the ninja bomb. Everybody asks this for the ninja smoke bomb, and I always find it hysterical. So yes, Japan has loads of smoke and incendiary devices, but the idea of a ninja creeping into a castle, remembering that Japanese castles are based on maru, different rings of defences. They've got into maru number 4 out of 7. They're in there, somebody sees them, they just run away with a smoke bomb. There's 4 gates to go through. What do they do? Just excuse me, and all the guards are looking at them. So smoke in Japanese warfare is pretty much about smoking out the battlefield or toxic smoke from wind directions. You'll find tons of Chinese classics, whether they are used or not, but they are copied in Japan, and all the recipes are copied, and they've got very poetic names.
Yeah. There's a comment. How did common people know what was happening during the Sengoku Jidai? I imagine they didn't know too much. Obviously, they would probably know if their overlords changed. If a clan came in and beat their overlords and took over, I imagine they knew that.
Do you know what I found out though, Nick, and I didn't know this? It was, as guides, I might be wrong with this, so don't take this at thingy value, but it was easier to move in the Sengoku period than the Edo period. The Edo period was actually more of a dictatorship, and they regulated who could do that, and they blocked everything off. In the Sengoku period, you could actually move around quite freely.
there, and I don't know how much I want to get into this here. They're supposed to do a video about this with somebody. We never finished it. It may still come, but we never got around to finishing it at the time. There's the idea of the komuso, as these monks that would wear the jinga or tengu hats, whatever that cover their heads, and essentially they would play with the flute and walk around. But these monks actually were probably ronin who want to, out of luck, no work, turned to being the komiso monks that would walk around and kind of beg for alms, with the idea of they're doing it for they're taking it back to their temple or monastery or something. And in reality, they were using it because monks could get around Japan easily. They could get through checkpoints. If wearing those hats, they could kind of conceal their identity, and they could go around and they could just kind of be extortionists, running around the country, just leeching off people.
What I find interesting, so basically when you go through a checkpoint, all samurai are checked going in and out. And if samurai want to ninjas will roll up things and put it in their underwear. So I'm not saying like in their underwear, they actually, because it's loincloths, they stitch it inside. Or one of the things samurai did is the vent in their head, they would put secret messages in there and put them in the vents of their holes and things like that. So there was loads of ways of getting things through checkpoints. There's an excellent one that nobody ever talks about in one of my ninja scrolls. And a guy has a Buddha statue because he goes as a pilgrim, but they have secret messages drilled inside them. Because when you go to a checkpoint, you're checked and they just take them through. And like that. So this idea, we never really quite see it in films, this checkpoint. You do see it in some Kurosawa and all that, but you don't see it often.
I want to give a counterpoint to Scott here because he's mentioning the Nanbokucho period, the wars between the southern and northern court, which he says he did his master's capstone on. I agree with what you're saying there, Scott, about how that is a time of great betrayal and ambition with loyalty. I kind of want to counterpoint on that, regarding loyalty and everything. It seems like, from what I've read, and you probably know much more than me, in regards to those who were loyal to the northern court and those who were loyal to the southern court, and using it as an excuse to attack each other and expand their territory and influence, it definitely seems like that was more on a larger basis than individuals trying to further their own gain, which is something that I think I was talking about more when I was talking about betrayals, because I was bringing up Sue Harukata and Mitsuhide and whatnot. But yeah, I think you're definitely right in the sense of betrayals in regarding to rebelling against say the northern court or the southern court, because the southern court really is probably more illegitimate, obviously. But yeah, I do agree with what you're saying on that, though.
Correct me, actually, Scott, or check my information here. Well, basically, the Imperial line were both running 10 years, if you like. One was on for 10 years, then he stepped down, and another line, Imperial line, was on for 10 years. And they just kept going like this until Godaigo said, nah, I'm not retiring. Sod that. And we'll fight for it. And that's where it divides. So technically, he's like, they were going on like this for a few generations. But Scott will be able to put more in that because it's so complicated, that period of history.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure.
So a question before was, do we like the 47 Ronin film with Keanu Reeves?
I'm gonna add Scott as a moderator here just because I didn't realize I could do this. I'm just gonna click this to see if it does it really quick. Add as moderator. Ah, cool. Okay. So I don't know if your name is gonna change colors now, Scott, but we'll see what happens. 47 Ronin. Yes. What do you think, Anthony?
I actually went into Last Samurai thinking, I can't wait for this, and I hated it. I hated Last Samurai. I own it, but I hate it. And I went in 47 Ronin going, oh, God, here we go. And I absolutely loved it. I thought it was well funny because it was that far removed from history. They were wearing Chinese armour, using Chinese swords, and it was so random that I actually enjoyed it because it was a bit more like Jason and the Argonauts than a samurai film. It just happens to be in Japan. But it's a terrible history film. It's nothing to do with history.
Yeah, I just from the trailers, I was worried about 47 Ronin, and it was funny that there were characters in the trailer that they made out to be really big, things that end up being really minor parts of the story and stuff, and it was just. I get the whole idea of trying to do something and make it more kind of fantasy-ish and whatnot, and you could tell interesting stories. I know with Yasuke, I with the Netflix anime, I stayed away from that because of that. But at the time when I think that came out when I was in high school, the 47 Ronin movie with Keanu Reeves, and I was still interested in it, and I went and saw it, and I remember there was some interesting things about it, but overall I was very disappointed with how it all turned out still. I mean, I'm gonna probably review it at some point here, but
but most of what we know about the 47 Ronin are actually based on a story anyway, isn't it? It's not the actual event. It's based on a theatre show, I think. So, and that's what became the popular imagination. I can't remember the name of the theatre show, but it's an Edo period job.
Japan at War just asked an interesting question. If you had to, what clan would you serve? I've answered this one before, and I think I've always said the Tokugawa because they won. So, what do you think, Anthony? Who would you serve?
Sorry, what was the clan? I was reading Scott's actually name has changed now to Blue. So yeah, this is going on about the. What was the question?
Japan at War asked if you could serve a clan, which one would it be? I'd
like to go back to the Heikei times. If I was going to go back, I'd go back then because we know so much about it, but we don't really know that much about then. And I would love to go and see what it was actually like. If I was people say, where would you go in history? I would actually go back to Cro-Magnon times, to literally cavemen, hunter-gatherers. That's where I'd go back to. I love that idea. With humans, not, be hunter-gatherers. I would love it. But if not, somewhere in the Heikei, somewhere like that, really like glorious. And throw myself off a boat while grabbing two people.
Yeah. We're just hitting the 1 hour and 45-minute mark. I think, what about 15 more minutes you think would be good to round out of 2 hours?
Anything you like, mate. Anything.
Right. We'll go for about 15 more minutes here, guys.
Sorry, Scott, the answer is no to that. Would I like to go through it? I've spent about 17,000 hours listening to Stephen Nojiri about the bloody Two Courts War, and even though it's fascinating, he does my head in about it all the time, just constantly. You and Stephen Nojiri, Scott, should get together, and you would love each other. But we do need to chat, Scott. I think we should grab Scott in here. We need to get his face up here.
I think we should do a stream sometime with Scott in here, too.
Yeah. So I've got a few things that I'll catch up on these questions. So did the ninja claws, did they exist? There's one reference to a claw, but it's not for climbing. It's actually, I think, in some, not combat, not like ninja hand-to-hand combat, but maybe in like an attack. But it's just called the tiger claw. We've no idea. I've never seen one. But, of course, it comes from the Bujikan, these claws. I wish they were real because they look cool. Somebody said that they were probably for moving bales of hay and grasses and things like that. They're an agricultural tool, but I don't know.
There's a question here. When do I want to verify my channel? That's not something I can do until after I hit over 100,000 subscribers. So once I hit around there, I don't know if I think I might have to apply for it, or if they just take note of me and then they do it. I'm not sure. But that only happens I believe only after 100,000 subscribers. I think there are special exceptions they sometimes do with people where they give them a verified check mark. But for me, I think I'm probably gonna have to wait until I'm well over 100,000 subscribers before I'll get that. Which would be cool when that happens. I'm waiting for my 100,000 subscriber plaque. That I'm probably gonna get that when I'm out of town, or I'm gonna get you to the wrong address or something.
Right. Is there Buddhism in ninjutsu? So Buddhism is just there in Japan. Do you know what everybody misses? The fact that Buddhism predates the samurai. It's a foreign religion. So is Confucianism. Shinto is a native religion, but people forget that actually Shintoism and folklore are quite, not separate, but they're mixed together. And Shintoism is cleaned in the 20th century. So when people say Shinto, they get this idea. And actually, it's mixed in with Buddhism because they were both there really early on. There's lots of folklore, which isn't anything. It's just local magic. And it gets thrown into Shintoism. And then loads of them mix it over. So it's an underlying foundation of all Japan. So they're always doing something with Buddha. Do you know what I mean? With the Buddha. But none of it is actually like what the Buddha said. I find Japanese Buddhism ridiculous. It's like the Buddha's like, let go of everything. and move off samsara into nirvana. Right, well, first of all, we're going to capture that place, and we're going to take this place, and then what is it, Pure Land Buddhism, which is if we get enough points, we'll just skip actual work and we'll go straight to nirvana, or the land before
I think, well, there's this Pure Land, there's True Pure Land. And I think with True Pure Land, it's like, first you gotta get to the world where you're actually able to achieve nirvana before you can go achieve nirvana. It's like you gotta you gotta get to the Pure Land where then you can achieve the nirvana. I think is what it was like.
It's like if you spend this life, instead of working out your karma and instead of working out the fourfold path and the the Four Noble Truths and the eightfold path, you build up power from Amida Buddha, and that will leapfrog you into the Pure Land, where you learn how to go into nirvana. I was just like, okay, right.
There's a bit of an oxymoronical question here that I think would be fun to spin. It's a question asking, what do you like better, ninja or samurai? Considering that ninja were samurai, I don't know how we can answer that besides just saying samurai.
Basically, do we enjoy standard samurai versus espionage-based samurai? Espionage-based samurai, ninja or shinobi, whatever you want to call them, are a much smaller percentage. I think out of an army of 4,000 from the Gunpo Joshu listings, there is only 40 ninja. So there are literally hardly any there. But we have the full army listings. But I would personally not want to be one, because it would be horrific. You'd probably die a violent death. And like, for example, when Tokugawa hired 200 men from Iga, 75 were shot climbing castle walls. You know what I mean? That indeed tight because he couldn't be bothered giving them iron shields. So they actually were climbing up through walls and stuff. So, that's a difficult one.
Yeah. Let's see here. Why didn't the Hojo expand east and northeast, where all the clans were relatively small and fighting each other? Why did the mighty Hojo smash? Why didn't the Hojo smash these clans? Well, you got to keep in mind there were some avenues for them to get around, but right to the east of them were the I think it was the Satake. And the Satake they did clash with a lot, but the Satake did actually own a kind of sizable land there. And just the geography also didn't help either, where they had the Kanto region, but they were sort of boxed into the Kanto region with the mountains and whatnot. And the times they did try to kind of get out of the Kanto region, they did expand into Kotsuke there a bit, but they never were able to push any further north. They had so much trouble just trying to dislodge the Sanada. And the Sanada had Numata, and the Hojo wanted Numata, but they couldn't siege out Numata from the Sanada. And then when they were trying to push into Shinano during the Tensho Jingo conflict after Nobunaga's death, of course, from what I read, they pushed in pretty fast, but the thing is, all the minor families in Shinano favored the Tokugawa, so then they were quickly kind of pushed out. So it's more of a thing that they were sort of boxed into the Kanto region, and they could only go so far. If they could have, been free to focus in one direction and really push north, say, yeah, I think they could have done it. They had the manpower, they had everything set up, they were wealthy, they had the wealth of Kanto. But you had to, remember that throughout much of the Sengoku period, they were competing with, the Uesugi, the Takeda, the Imagawa, all these bigger clans as big as them that were around them. So it really, they had too many rivals to ever really expand in one solid direction for a lot of time. And it wasn't until sort of the end of the period after Nobunaga's death that they sort of allied with the Tokugawa, and they were able to sort of have that freedom to advance in one direction. But by that point, it's 1582, and only 8 years later they get killed by the Toyotomi.
See, this is why I don't understand the history, Nick. It's just ridiculous. Like, the east of the west of this.
Yeah. I'm much more. When it comes to samurai history, I'm into the sort of bigger picture campaigns and politics of what was going on in the Sengoku period, and that's where I differ from you in a lot of cases, because you're on the ground. How was this happening? How did they do that? This you're questioning. Did they really use this? Did they really do that? And that's where I think is a great difference between us.
Well, that's what I would like everybody to get together. Like we've got Scott over there, we've got Stephen Najiri, we've got different people, Japan at War, of course. We're all just coming from different angles, and you answer all the little questions, and we all need to get together and do it.
Yeah.
But hold on a minute. Mappo. Scott's talking about Mappo, which is like this Buddhist. I call it the end times, which is a degrading of Buddhism, Buddhist teachings. But yeah, I'll have to go back through that because it's religion I find really difficult. It's so complex. What did samurai eat? Basically, it was regional. Everybody thinks Japanese people eat fish, but only if you live near a river. You know, and there was loads. I've heard that they ate monkey at some point. Used to shoot monkey. There's hunters. Everybody says they never ate meat.
In Japan, yeah.
Yeah, you know, everybody says the Japanese never ate meat, but actually, what do hunters eat then? You know, when they hunt, there's tons of hunters in Japan. So what are they eating? What are they hunting?
Yeah, but with meat though, like when they say they didn't eat meat, it more translates to they didn't eat like cows. They didn't eat cattle. They didn't have like the normal animals we think of when we think of meat. They didn't really have too many of those grazing animals to use. If you're thinking of meat, you're thinking of smaller game, stuff that hunters would have maybe found. Maybe I don't want to say they even ate
grain and things like that.
Deer too much. I know there's a lot of samurai often went out and hunted deer. So it's like I don't really know. And I know sometimes deer were considered sacred too, and there are a lot of animals that the Japanese consider to be sacred or spiritual. And there's that problem too.
Scott, we'll have to have a chat on Mappo because you'll get to go. We haven't got that much time left, but it is mental. Yeah, I did that Buddhist line of videos. Right, to round up the questions that I've had then. So, am I going to do the Imishi? I'm so stuck on the things at the minute. I've got so many things to do. Honestly, if I had about 5 lifetimes, I wouldn't finish. I've got stacks and stacks of documents to get translated, and we're nowhere near there, and it takes so long. Black masks and all that, I won't go into it too deep, but basically Black Ninja exists in the sense that thieves exist and people need to cover their faces, but ninja in the Sengoku period doing their ninja things, probably not. All of the documentation doesn't point at that. And can Japanese people marry? They used to marry some of the Jesuits. I think the first person who they couldn't do the gun trigger, do you remember? So he gives him his daughter as a wife, I think. Somebody remember that. So basically, some of the original people, the sailors, like if you've got Richard Cox's diary, you can get Richard Cox's diary. You can get Willem Adams's stuff. You can get there's loads of diaries from that time, and loads of them were marrying girls or sort of like prostituting girls, if you know what I mean. There was loads of that going on.
There's where is it? I just saw it. A question about jiu-jitsu being used in the battlefield.
The only real thing I've actually seen is get off your back. It says if you get put on the floor, get up because you're going to get killed. So this idea of jiu-jitsu, what we're thinking on the ground, Gracie jiu-jitsu, no, it's get up. Because if you're on the floor on a battlefield with everyone running around in horses with spears, that's the last place you want to be. And I personally have seen no documentation that says take them to the ground and put an arm lock on. Everything is, and even the older terms like kumi-uchi. Kumi is grappling and uchi is striking, and usually it's with a dagger. So have you seen the new guys that do it in Japan where they fight with spears and then they run in at each other and literally swords are pretty much useless. Once you're in there, they start getting in with knives. Mm-hmm. But that's just sort of LARPing, if you like. But it does show up some good bits.
Yeah. People have to remember that. That's kind of the only reason katanas eventually, with shorter weaponry, started to exist is because of the close quarters combat. That started being more prevalent. Sacred Deer of Tsushima. I was on Miyajima in 2019, and of course there's the Sacred Deer all over Miyajima that are really cool. You can just pet them everywhere, and they'll take things out of your hands. You gotta be careful.
Yeah, they eat your guidebook, don't you?
I had a pack. I had some paper, and they came and just nipped it out. It's like, okay.
They love the paper. They love the paper. And was there magic in samurai times? That's the last one from it. Was there magic? Japan was tons of magic. It was full of it. But so was the West. Magic was everywhere, and they loved magic. What is the difference between indoor school?
It's when I answer really quick. Favorite samurai. I've answered this one I think in the past stream too. I always get these favorite questions. Favorite samurai. It differs between samurai warrior and samurai leader. I think because I gotta draw that distinction because there's the samurai that were the big leaders versus samurai that were frontline fighters. But yeah, if I were to say one that overall I just like in general, I always like Honda Tadakatsu. I think I talked about earlier. I love Honda Tadakatsu and Sanada Yukimura. Even though those two are my top two on my top 10 warriors list, but I think there's a reason why they're my favorites is because they were so well renowned for being valiant warriors. Oh, you got Pixie out.
Pixie's come to join us. She was on the bed. I basically went out throwing the ball till she got tired and went to bed, but now she's woke up. I was like, Yeah, so Scott, basically, I would like to, in the future, do the martial arts of the samurai, but it's so complex and a hot topic like the ninja was a hot topic. So one of my major problems is that you look at all the samurai sword schools now, and they all come from about 8 different schools, and very few of them, only a handful, go back into the Sengoku period and beyond. So all those thousands of people fighting, all the different clans from all over Japan, all of that is missing. All of those martial arts is missing. Mm-hmm. Then something nobody talks about is that, like Shinkage Ryu and Hattori Shinto Ryu and all them, they are like 1 or 2 in thousands of styles, and then they become popular. It becomes very political, and you get the Tokugawa supporting one, and they're driving out different, and they all start doing it. And you got and then you got hundreds out offshoots from these core schools, and we forget that all the other stuff's missing.
Yeah.
So yeah, to go through that would be a nightmare.
I thought I saw. Oh yeah, this is the never-ending debate of knights versus samurai. Which one were better trained?
Well, yeah.
I don't think that anyone can really answer that unless you were to bring a knight and a samurai out of history and have them fight. But I don't know.
I think, in my opinion, I think knights would win. I don't know why it's a feeling.
I think there are times where a knight would win and times when a samurai would win, but I think it's largely based on time period, like when things, because I think at the time, I think late Sengoku samurai and samurai armies definitely some of the strongest power in the world at the time. A late Sengoku period army put them up against the strongest other armies in the world, like the Ottomans or something, and they would give them a run for their money. But by that point in time, freshly walking off the field of Sekigahara, like the battle hardened Ashigaru and samurai, at the time, and you give them some artillery and some all their guns and whatnot, and you have a very effective military force. And I think you have to compare it time-wise, because there are times where I think that Japan would be comparatively weaker and times where they would be comparatively stronger. I guess more army-wise. Maybe not warrior to warrior, but army-wise.
Do you know what question I think should be answered, and nobody ever does it? Nick, if you're going to do a video, please do this one. Is if the Mongols had have succeeded in landed, what would have happened to Japan?
Yeah, that's actually, I know I made a poll about this about a year ago when Ghost Tsushima came out, and then Linfamy just recently did a poll on it himself because he's doing, he's covering the Mongol invasions right now. There's the debate of could Japan have, held back the Mongols, and personally, I think they could have, just because invading Japan, it would have been... The deeper the Mongols go, the harder it would have been for them, terrain-wise, of course, because Japan's very mountainous, but also in terms of the guerrilla warfare the samurai probably would have been implementing, it would have just eventually just grinded the Mongols down, I feel like. It would have been hard for them to keep up a determined offensive in Japan to the point where you can conquer all the islands. It would have been just a meat grinder for them. And I think in the long run, Japan would have won. It would have been a hard slog, but I think overall Japan would have still kind of won.
It would be weird to think if there was like a Mongol sort of northeast, I think it was north, around there, sort of, a community today that because they'd landed and stayed and they'd, that would have been awesome.
Mm-hmm. Scott, I no longer entertain that debate. Yeah, I understand.
Right, so Daniel is training with Yamamoto. This is a question, okay, I do want to ask, and I was going to bring this up, but I didn't want to sort of like push too much on Nick's channel. But so I was on the phone the other day to Alex Alera from Taisha Ryu. Now, Taisha Ryu is a Sengoku period school, and they've started a YouTube channel, and we were debating why Nick is the king of YouTube in Samurai. He literally just, I don't know, I'll talk about anything today. 90,000 views, right? And Nick's just sat there with his crown on, you know. Samurai Sexuality, I checked today, is like 90,000 views.
That one's doing really good, yeah.
Taisha Ryu, I've started their YouTube channel in Japan. It's not, you know, it's not me doing it. They've done it. They've filmed everything, the swordsmanship and everything. Like 200 views, 100 views. They've been going about 6 months. It just can't seem to get traction.
It took me a year before I hit, like, I think 100 subscribers even.
Oh, really?
It took me I don't know if it was 100 or 1,000, but it took me quite some time to get any traction going. And then momentum started picking up. I think the big breakout for me when I started kind of piling on subscribers happened when I made my armor video, because it had a slow start, but all of a sudden I checked one day and it was over 10,000 and it started rocketing up. And now that one's my most successful video to this day. It's over 1 million now, but it was a slow build, and then you have these breakout videos that, you know, boosted up. Ghost of Tsushima, when that came out, I did the review for that. I released the review a week after, because I took a whole week off of making videos just to make my Ghost of Tsushima review, and that one also immediately took off. And then I did a couple, ones that do good for me that have helped kind of boost my channel, like my ones where I did like samurai, you know, armor, samurai swords, samurai castles, my top 10 lists, they did okay. But the most recent one that really took off and boomed, besides the sexuality one, because that one I'm still kind of monitoring, but my Age of Samurai review, which I just like Anthony, I watched those all in the same day. I remember we were texting throughout the day, you know, watching these episodes, and he was putting his videos, you know, episode by episode, and I made sure to, you know, to mention his stuff in my review. But it was just, I wanted to get that review out, and I think what helped is the big "this is bad" in full, you know, font right there, and that one boomed also, and that one's just sitting under 300,000.
Right.
But it comes in these bursts. It doesn't always. I was, over the past, I think, end of spring, early summer, this year, I was at a very much of a lull, it seemed like, in terms of views coming in. But slowly with
they're usually on my videos.
it goes, yeah. It comes in waves. I think right now I'm doing good. I'm covering stuff that people actually seem interested more about. I think when I was doing the Imjin War, it kind of started to trail off, but it comes and goes. Yeah, and yeah. Go ahead.
Just finish off. So basically, guys, I just want to plug Taisha Ryu, because they're doing so well and they film such good videos and nobody watches it. Like, but there's the question was, there's a book coming out, and if people don't know how I work, I get documents and have them translated, and we then create them for publishing. But Taisha Ryu have approached me, and they're a Sengoku period school who are putting their. They've actually got material from Kamizumi, the founder of not the founder, but the guy who does Shinkage-ryu. And they come to me with all their documents, and we go through the translations and everything. So Taisha Ryu are going to be coming out in a book, but not within the next 18 months, 2 years from that.
We should.
So if that answers the question.
I should just do a link of all the recommended channels after this. And Sengoku Studies, Japan at War, Taisha Ryu. All the recommended stuff. Of course, yours in there at the top, Anthony.
Don't worry about mine, Nick. No, I've been going for years and nobody cares.
No.
It's all right.
I gotta put it out there.
You've linked me loads, and it just, for some reason, people think, well, me and Metatron debated this, and the thing is because I'm looking for the cracks in the history, and I'm looking for the things that are not wrong. It's not about I want to be wrong. What I want to do is find those bits we're missing. You know what I mean? Like, and put them into knowledge. Like, for example, taking your shoes off outside. Nobody would dream of that in Japan today, but it was there. So, but because I'm doing this, it rubs people up the wrong way. So I tend to lose the traction, I think. And I don't put a million bloody pictures on and have a wonderful authoritative voice like you, Nick. Which is
I'm glad my voice helps. I have this presenter voice when I'm talking and I'm doing my videos, and then I have this regular voice, and everyone's like, your voice is so different. Like, why do you? I remember I was talking to some Germans on Discord, and one of my German friends mentioned, oh yeah, no, they say your voice sounds so much worse than your voice. I'm like, yeah, I know.
Well, that's what we need to get people on Scott's channel on Singapore Stories and Japan at War. I think Stefan's videos are good, but I've never heard Scott's voice, I don't think. I've seen his videos, I'm sure, but I don't remember his voice, or I can't remember, so I haven't quite got his head in.
He's got his voice in my head. Deep voice.
Right. Hi, so you basically get, hi, my name's Nick, and then it's, hi, my name's Scott.
I want to, because I always try to say, my stuff is, I try to make it more narrative and make it more kind of like story-ish and whatnot. And that's kind of the big focus behind what I do with my videos is, I know I have my general history, more documentary-like ones, but I want to stress that I try to be a storyteller first and foremost. And I think that is, I hope that is what is helping, is the combination of my voice and the way I go about, explaining things, that I hope is what people like about my videos. But I have no way of I get the comments, but I really don't know what the actual reason is why I've been able to grow the way I have been able to, and I'm thankful that I have been. But it's a wild ride, and I'm here for it.
Yeah, it's brilliant to watch you grow. Honestly, Nick, it's like you're the king. You're the new Metatron. You're going to get to 400,000 subscribers.
Linfamy is still the king of specifically Japanese history videos in English. I know Japan has all their own YouTube channels and stuff, and I've seen a whole bunch of different Japanese history channels, like French ones, Indian ones. There's a really good Japanese history channel that this guy in China does, even. Maybe it's Taiwan, but yeah, I think Linfamy is still the top in terms of specifically Japanese history, and I know Linfamy, I was talking to him about this, and he mentioned that he thought that Metatron was the highest. I'm like, well, Metatron doesn't specifically do Japanese history. He does a lot of Japanese history, but he doesn't specifically do Japanese history. And in terms of specifically Japanese history, Linfamy is up there.
And a lot less now. He does not. I've not seen that much Japanese stuff come out of him at the minute.
Oh, he does about a video a week, still, like me.
Right.
He definitely has his range of topics. It's not just focused on the samurai like I try to do, but it's he does all sorts of interesting things, talking about different kind of cultural stuff as well, and of course he has all the folklore stuff and things. So he gets millions of views on his stuff. He's like I said, I think he's still number one up there, but I'm trying to catch up as just talking about samurai stuff, and I think that's what I'm going to be focused on throughout my content. I'm not going to go past the samurai. I'm not going to go necessarily before the samurai.
There's a random question there, and I can't answer it. I don't think you can. It's weird, but did the Mongols use Chinese carpenters to build their ships?
The Mongols used a lot of Chinese ships. I don't know if they probably ended up getting them to build them ships too, but I know for a fact a lot of the fleet. I don't know if it was during both invasions or if it was specifically the second invasion, but the Mongols ended up using a lot of ships from China and I think Korea as well into their big navy at the time. They combined a bunch of their fleets together.
Well, so because the reason I picked that is because I remember trying to search in Marco Polo's, because apparently Marco Polo actually referenced the fleet for the invasion into Japan. Mm-hmm. But I've never found it yet. I've been through it. It's quite difficult because he obviously doesn't call it Japan. So if anybody knows anything about that, put that in, because that was just random. Imagine like this Italian sort of guy watching the fleet prepping or something like that. I'm not sure about the dates either. You'd have to, it was one of those off-the-cuff comments I found. But is it true that the Mongols use human victims on the front of their ships? And Japanese captured.
I haven't heard that.
Women were tied to the front of the vessels and all sorts, and
Yeah, I have no idea about that. I haven't heard anything about that. And yeah,
and Scott, if you're wondering who Nick Mayer is in there, Nick Mayer is one of my friends. He was in the documentary I did, and he always rips the Mickey out of me all the time. And he's so too bloody late, too lazy, aren't you, Nick, to watch?
Yeah, I was gonna say, Scott. Yeah, you got to get going on your stuff, man. I want to see more content from you. Come on.
I know.
Okay, let's it's about 2:12 here. Let's try to find one more interesting question for both of us. One each. Well, I'll try to find one really interesting one, and Antony one really interesting one for him. To kind of close things off here. I want to just read a couple of ones here. There's a question I think I'll do here about Akechi Mitsuhide. I've talked a lot about him before. I talked about him today. I talk about him all the time. I was just talking to Stefan about Antony, about Mitsuhide, about Mitsuhide, and I think Mitsuhide is one of the most fascinating figures in the entire period, and I think he's someone that you could play sort of devil's advocate with in regards to why he rebelled against Nobunaga, why the incident at Hanoji happened. I really feel like he's someone that if he would have sort of succeeded in his plot to sort of take over, even if it was kind of a hastily put together idea, Japan could have evolved in a much more interesting manner in regards to sort of how my train of thought always goes off here, but in regards to unification, because Mitsuhide was trying to work with the Mori. He had done work with the Chosokabe. Imagine if you formed this greater coalition and from there sort of unified Japan. Of course, you still would have ran into trouble with the same kind of stuff Hideyoshi ran into. Same things Ieyasu ran into. They still would have had problems in dealing with Kyushu. They would have had problems with Christianity. They would have had problems with foreign influence. They would have had problems with trying to figure out a way to create a stable system for which they could continue to maintain peace. But I think Mitsuhide, if he were to have got his message through to the Mori, if he were to have secured a greater alliance with the Chosokabe and created this kind of bigger sphere of influence, it would have been a very interesting scenario in how things would have panned out. And in regards to him betraying Nobunaga, I could go on and on about why he would have done that, why he would have wanted to do that. But I don't think he should be viewed as incompetent or villainous. I don't think his actions should be disregarded as necessarily foolish. I think his planning may have been foolish, but the where and the why and whatnot, I think you could put a lot of stock behind. So he's definitely someone I feel like should get looked into more, and I'm curious to see how he's going to be portrayed in the new Samurai Warriors game, which I know is going to talk a lot about him.
Somebody just brought up here, Dick. So last one from me is that Genghis Khan was from Japan, and that he was taught by Tengu. It's actually Scott's answered it there, guys. So if you can see, Scott's answered it. But basically, it's Minamoto no Yoshitsune, and he is in conflict with his brother after they have taken Japan. Basically, I think they've defeated, or who did they defeat? Scott, I forgot. And the Yoritomo, I think, goes against Yoshitsune, and he kills him. He's killed in a village somewhere. But the legend is that he gets across to the mainland and he becomes Genghis Khan, and he comes back and takes Japan, or tries to take Japan, because he's annoyed that his brother sort of did it. If I've got that right, Scott, tell me if I've got anything wrong. But yeah, that's I think if that was true, it would be awesome. It would be one of the best things ever. But no, it's total myth.
It's almost like the story that Jesus came to Japan and died in Japan, because there's the grave of Jesus in Japan as well in the north.
Same as Josephus Arimathea came to England in Glastonbury and gave the Holy Grail there and everything. Yeah, I wish they were true, but no. Yeah. Taira, that's who they were. Taira Kiyomoto. Yeah, that's who they were against. So yes, I think that is a quality myth, but just a myth.
All right, those were our final questions here. Antony, do you wanna plug any more of your upcoming projects, books, or anything before we sign off?
Basically, guys, I've got two that I'd like to say, and it's coming out this week or the week after, and it's Yin Yang. So this is basically, it's the ultimate guide to Yin Yang, and I wrote this because so much Chinese culture is in Japan, and so many people don't really understand it, and it's there in loads of samurai stuff. So it's out this week. However, though, a quick story is it's been stopped in China because it was on a plague ship. One of the COVID ships got COVID or something. So in America, it's out a couple of weeks after. And But at the minute, and Nick has helped me with this, guys, is I'm just doing the Book of Bushido, and this is on for pre-order at the minute. It's called the Book of Bushido. Nick has read it. He kindly did it for me, and went through it, and I strayed into like history instead of the archaeologically type, stuff. And if you could pre-order that, it really helps because the publishers get very happy.
It's really good, guys. Like I said, like he said, I went through it. I tried to kind of see if there's any issues on that I could find in it, or anything that came across that was that we could disagree on. But pretty much him and I agree for the most part on most of the things that talk about when it comes to Bushido and the realities of it, and sort of the myth part of it and whatnot. And it's really an interesting dive into Bushido and the realities of it. So yeah, check that out when it comes out. I'll be linking it. I'll be talking about it. But yeah, thank you so much, everybody, for coming by. This is really fun today. We're gonna do it again sometime soon, and yeah, this has been great. Once again, I want to thank Antony for being here and being a part of this, and we'll hope to see him again soon in another stream. We'll bring on Scott.
Thank you very much, Nick. I really enjoyed it. Wunderbar. Thank you, and I'm looking forward to talking to Scott in person.
All right. With that said, adios, everybody. All right, it's just you and me now. I think that was good.
Are you sure?